understood what our narrative was going to be. We knew what problem we wanted to solve before we started building the church. So we used the change to solve this particular problem. In terms of how we solve that problem for people who say cannot onboard like DeFi protocols and things like that, it's why we decided on the kind of solutions we have at more. Right? So for instance, I give an example is the more which takes away the stress of let's say having things you need to do like as opposed to using the more plan card. Let's say we wanted to spend the first thing to do for an off-campaign partner. For that, we probably have to send the money to an exchange. We probably have to go to buy the ETF or some other exchange. Let's say you want to earn reward for the money you have in your wallet. You probably have to go to another different platform, which is probably another chain, and stake your tokens there in order to earn returns. In order to convert that to stablecoin, you probably have to take that to another chain again to convert that to stablecoin. For using more flag, you don't have to do any of that. It's super seamless. And signing up for more flag doesn't even require you to have same blockchain knowledge or technical knowledge. We created it so it's simple to use for just about everyone. So you could actually give it to your grandmother and she could be interacting with different platforms without even knowing she's interacting with different platforms. And that is also the kind of solutions we are offering in different regions. So we are looking for people who have solutions to the problems they are actually facing in a different region. And we are saying, as long as you have a solution, come to us, we'll do the rest for you. Even if you don't have a team, even if you don't have the technical talent, we'll do the rest for you. So, I think, is there any other question before I move on to the technical?
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Earlier on, we had mentioned layers zero. So we also have Caldera, which we've integrated already. So yes, the OpenAI comes with the more blockchain. Any other questions before I move on? Good. So let's understand from a technical standpoint what makes more difference. And I think from a technical standpoint, you will appreciate how much effort we put into building more in general. So let's start with like layer 2 basics, right? Good. So let's start with layer 2 basics. What is the problem we are currently experiencing with Ethereum? Right. So first, Ethereum is expensive, and second, Ethereum is slow. Good. So first, Ethereum is expensive, and second, Ethereum is slow. So let me give you like a real life example. So one time I was onboarding my younger sister, and I said, I'm not going to load up your wallet with something like $10, so you could play around, you could do this, no problem. The gas fee to send out that morning, the protocol she wanted to interact with was on another thing. The gas fee itself was $18. The gas fee cost more than the amount of money I wanted to spend to have. So it doesn't make any sense for like everyday transaction. So if we say we want to onboard, in the beginning I said we wanted to onboard the market people on the roads of Lagos, we wanted to onboard the freelancer in Ghana. How are we going to explain to the market woman on the streets that the transaction fee is going to be higher than the transaction itself? It doesn't make much sense. Next, we look at the fact that it's actually slow. So when network gets congested, it will take as long as 3 hours for a single transaction to confirm. And for people who think 3 hours is outrageous, how many of us remember the NSAS era? It took 3 months for a transaction journey to go for those who are familiar with different code things. It took 3 months for a specific transaction to go through. That's the kind of how many can you wait 3 months for a transfer to go through? And imagine if it's your salary you are sending. You know? So how do we solve these problems? So you see, I said don't drive taxi, take a box. So the way to look at it is imagine you're traveling with 50 friends, right? and all of you are heading to, let's say, a wedding. Now, if one of you take a taxi, which is basically a metaphor for like Ethereum transactions, it's going to be expensive and also inefficient. That will be taxes on the road. So you're going to cost traffic and also you're going to incur like a lot more cost. But imagine if all people manage to bring the cost. So that's going to be one vehicle that is going to transport everyone, sharing the cost and also reduce traffic. Now, this is exactly what Layer 2 does. So instead of processing every single transaction on Ethereum, what we do is we batch them together offchain, and then we process them efficiently and just put the final results back to Ethereum. Does that make sense? Good. So Ethereum is on layer one, and more is also built on Ethereum. But we just batch these transactions and we process them offchain, and we just send the results back on Ethereum, making it super fast. Now, this approach dramatically reduces the cost and also increases the speed while maintaining the security benefits of the Ethereum network. And if you're wondering how we are maintaining the benefits of the security of the Ethereum network, I will spend more light on it. So, go on. Good. So, how the two solutions like more actually work? But it's actually simpler than you might think. So, first, what do we have to work with? Which is like the work we have section. So, think about it this way. We have the confirmed layer two states, right? All of us are familiar with what state means, right? So, think of it as a snapshot or a checkpoint that everyone agrees is correct. So, an example is let's say I wanted to have a layer two state, then I ask everyone to open up their OK account. So I take a picture of everyone's balances, right? That current balance forms the initial state. Now, we also have a new layer two state we want to get confirmed, which means something has happened and we have a new state and we want to also confirm this new state. And what happened in the interim? There are transactions. So there are actual transactions that occur between these two states, and these transactions could be transferred, swapped, whatever it is. Now, what we are trying to prove is actually straightforward. We are trying to prove that if you take the initial state we had, which is the picture of everyone's wallets or bank accounts, and then you add the transactions that happen after. So let's say the product to the first guy here says 100,000, the next person says 200,000, the third person says 300,000, that's 600,000 in total. So let's assume initially we all had 1 million naira, right? So what we are trying to prove is that if you deduct that 600,000 from the 1 million naira, we should have a new thing which is 400,000, right? Which is which is why I made this diagram. So you can see the previous state roots, and then you can see the transactions, the first transaction, the second transaction, the third transaction, and before this are processed, a number of checks are actually done, which is going to be the last check, which is going to be the last check. Now, the last check ensures that every transaction happens in the correct order and they can be replayed. The next, we are verifying the balances to ensure that every user has the money they need to have, and then finally, signature to ensure that we have the permission to send the money. So, that the third person could send money out of the first person's wallet. So, finally, adding cryptographic proof, which is the one followed the bubble. Now, this proof mathematically guarantees that the calculation we did are actually correct. And the beauty of this system is that you don't actually have to trust the operator processing the transaction. So, with every L2, you don't actually have to trust the blockchain itself to know that it's correct. The same way you actually don't have to trust the calculator if you can verify the step of every calculation is made. So let's say you did 1 plus 1 plus 1. You don't actually have to trust the calculator to know that the answer is 3. If you could actually just go back and verify what it is you did sum of. So now over here you see The highlight for more. So it's divided into three. So we have three core technological innovation that actually makes more special. And we design each element to address a specific challenge in the blockchain ecosystem. Now the first is our decentralized sequencer. How many people have heard of sequencers before? Sequencers, validators. So in our case, we do have validators, but we also have sequencers, and they're the ones that handle consensus for us. And I'll talk about sequencers soon enough. So most layer tools rely on a single entity to process transactions, right? And this creates like a single point of failure and also opportunities for manipulation, right? And if you're wondering about what kind of manipulation they could do, they could actually, do what I mean, or anything exactly. So they could actually transform transactions for your own personal gain, right? So allowing a single point of failure, and I guess it's not something you're looking forward to because once again, it's reminiscent of like centralized systems or Web 2. And if you're going to rely on a single source of truth for bringing consensus, then why the hell do you even start using blockchains in the first place? So the second is our hybrid ruler. So MOF is actually the first thing to be a hybrid ruler, and OPZK means with a combination of an optimistic ruler and also a ZK ruler. So we have optimistic, zero knowledge, strong virtual machine. So we combine the best aspect of optimistic and ZK ruler. So in terms of examples, I'm just going to give you a quick example. Now, we only want validators to right, they ensure like transaction object and consensus and the rest of that. But sometimes there is a problem. Sometimes there could be, let's say, malpractice, there could be a wrong transaction actually submitted, and that triggers something we call a challenge period. So a challenge period is where the validators come together to prove that transactions actually occurred and actually occurred in the manner in which a particular validator claimed it did. Now, we'll talk about this later on, but if you're using an optimistic rollout, and I'm not going to forward chains, I'm using optimistic rollout. But if you're using a chain that is consistent and optimistic rollout, then it could take up to 7 days for a challenge period to conclude, which is a long time. So imagine you put out a transaction and say your batch is also affected by like a transaction that has like an issue or an error. You have to wait up to like 7 days for that issue to get fine. But for more, it takes a maximum of 2 days. Usually we rectify it in a single day. So the third is actually our modular framework. And what our modular framework does is it allows individual components to be upgraded individually or independently. So with our modular framework, we actually do not need to pop the chain to upgrade any parts of, let's say, our stack. So if you wanted to upgrade, say, the ZK side of things, we could always just rely on the optimistic rollover and run it faster basically. So it gives us zero downtime and it also allows for like enhanced security. So, so if you take a look at the diagram, you see more modular architecture. And I divided it into like 3 distinct layers. So we have components, we have rows, we have functions. Now in the foundation, you can see the components. So they are like the basic building blocks. For instance, we have layer 1 contracts that offer security to Ethereum. We have batch submitters that connect transactions. We have consensus clients that coordinate agreements, L2 nodes that process operations. We have CKEVM for computation and aggregator that aggregates proofs. Then in the middle section, we have roles. Now, these roles define how the components work together. We have layer 1 that ensures security. We have the sequencer that arranges the transactions, the validator that checks the correctness. We also have the node that maintains the network. And at the top, we have the three actual different, when I say we are modular network, so these are the three different aspects of it: the sequencer network, the roll-up, and the OPC. Yeah. Now, this may look confusing, but it's pretty straightforward. And I'm just going to explain. So earlier on, we spoke about like challenge periods, right? And this is how the first diagram is how like every other OP stack or related optimistic roll handle challenges. So when there's a challenge, the validators create a challenge, and then they actually have to send like a response until they come to a consent. In the middle, or I'll skip the middle and come back to it. On the right, we have ZK validity proof, which is what ZK rollups use. So here, cryptographic proofs are generated for every batch of transactions that they send proactively, even without waiting for challenges. So with ZK rollups, you just send like a proof for each transaction, whether there's a challenge or not, whether there's an issue or not. And obviously, we have like its own trade-off, meaning that it's going to be more expensive, it's going to be slower, and there's also probably going to be security issues down the line. Now, more on the other hand, this is a mix of both of them. So what we do is when a validator challenges a state transition, a sequencer must respond by providing a secret proof within a specific time. So how it actually works is by default, most is going to be running on the open rollup system. And once a challenge is created, we instantly switch over to a ZK system, and the sequencer actually has to submit a proof within like a really short period. So once that proof has been sent, and once we have the correct state of the chain again, we move back to being an optimistic rollup. So I'm just quickly going to go over what I just said earlier. I think I've mentioned most of this before. We ended up just combining optimistic rollups and ZK rollups, and we are getting the efficiency of both of them. So just to be so when transactions are processed, a new state is proposed. Now the system initially operates as an optimistic rollup. It assumes that everything is correct until it's challenged. Now this is processing fast. This also makes it cost effective. But once anyone detects a problem or issues a challenge, instead of going through the lengthy back and forth that we see with like optimistic rollups, we switch to the hybrid approach, we switch to the ZK side of things. And then a sequencer submits a proof, and then within 1 to 2 days, we verify that, which means users can be able to access their funds again over this. So I'm just going to quickly explain sequencers. I know we are probably out of time. So in the diagram here, you could see in the diagram here, you could see what sequencers look for a layer 2 chain. So you could see the flow of transaction. When the user initiates a transaction, it goes first into the main pool. So that's like a waiting area for transactions that have not been processed. So you can think of this as kind of similar to a queue of people waiting to board an aircraft. So the sequencer's job is to take that transaction from this pool and arrange them in a specific order. So what we're doing is arranges it, it processes it, and then it submits batches of this transaction to the layer 1 contract, which is going to be Ethereum. Now, the ordering power for this sequencer is very important because just like being say first in line in a popular restaurant or the position of your transactions can actually influence whether you're going to get a good deal in a swap, whether you're going to get a win an NFT mint, whether your transaction is going to incur a certain amount of gas. Now, in most layer 2 systems, this function is usually controlled by just one entity. And this creates like two problems. It creates a security risk and it also creates a fairness concern, right? Because like we mentioned earlier, nothing stops this entity from just controlling transactions. So what happens when this single sequencer is compromised and decides to censor transactions or start prioritizing their own transactions over the users? How then do we say like we are using a decentralized network? So depending on the type of rollout, batch transactions will immediately will either proven through ZK proofs or will be assumed to be correct as is done in optimistic products. For our hybrid approach allows us to combine both for a more optimal performance. So here you just see me talking about these types of sequences we have, and then there's like a graph. I'm just going to go through it. So you can see centralized sequencers are more functional, but then again, it feels like a security risk. You could see L1 sequence contracts or platforms are those that actually allow Ethereum itself to handle ordering of transactions. And then you can see decentralized sequencers, which is just perfectly at the middle because it's a fine mix of both of them. So it's more functional than an L1 sequence contract, but also has like more trust than say a centralized or a shared sequencer. Well, I'm just gonna skip this because I think you might think about to explain, but who wants me to go ahead and explain it anyway? So we're gonna skip it. Okay, go ahead and explain it. Good. So this diagram, yeah, it does look a bit complex, but it's actually pretty straightforward. So starting at the bottom right, you can see the user initiates transactions, which enter the transaction pool over there. Now, rather than a single entity collecting and ordering these transactions, we have multiple sequencer nodes, and each of them are running a consensus line. Now, this node forms a sequencer set, which is what we call a sequencer set. So you could see the sequencers there, which are the proposals running the different nodes. Now, this nodes form a sequencer set that works together using a modified standard name consensus algorithm. So you can see I've highlighted that there. So they work together using standard consensus algorithm to agree on transaction ordering, which is like the entire rule of sequencers, basically. Now, this is similar to how a committee or a board of directors might agree on like different proposals that are tabled for them. Now, each sequencer independently validates transactions for things like proper signatures and also sufficient balances. Now, once consensus is reached, a part of these transactions are sent, a block is produced, sorry, and a part of these transactions are actually sent from the sequences straight, straight down using the PLS, and I just need to look for his name again. So they use the PLS, and I'm going to put up this person's name anyway, so it's a and let's just say the PLS signature scheme to create a compact cryptographic signature that proves that the entire set that they agreed upon was actually in the correct order. This signature is also then submitted to the staking contract on Ethereum. Now, the staking contract is critical for one reason. So, if we say that a single sequencer is dangerous, how then do we prove that having like more sequencers is somehow safe? So that the answer to that is actually in how someone becomes a sequencer in the first place. So before you become a sequencer more, you need to do two things. One, you need to stake a certain amount of money on the L1 contract, which is Ethereum. So you need to take that money on Ethereum, and also you need to have a certain amount of mock tokens dedicated to you. Since we haven't done TGE, that second part is not yet enforced, but every sequencer we have at the moment have to pay a certain amount of Ethereum on the Ethereum contract Now, if we find any misdoing amongst our sequencers, right? Again, which is the point of having like a decentralized sequencer system, we could easily just replace that person. But the penalty is the amount of money you take on that Ethereum contract will be taken from you as a penalty. So that the money being put on the Ethereum contract is some sort of like a guarantee. It sounds as a surety that this sequencer is actually going to do what is right at all times. And the very moment they go on to submit a wrong batch, or they go on to say lie in terms of like consensus, we penalize them by taking away everything that is staked. And when we do TGE, we are not just going to take away the stake on the contract, we are also going to take away every more token they have. So that's kind of how we ensure that our sequencers are actually related. Well, even more than that, at the moment, the current set of sequencers we have trust in them that we have no needs for things like that. For instance, PGET is one of our sequencers, something like is one of our sequencers. We have a number of like really credible projects that are acting as sequencers for more at the moment. So our architecture you see here, we eliminate like every single point of failure that could bring about censorship. We also ensure that no single individual sequencer can manipulate transactions in any way. So things like any possible involved, we can actually transform any user or more. So go back to the next slide. So this is like a quick comparison of more to say other optimistic products and also other ZK products. So first looking at the finality time, how long does it take for transactions to be considered irreversible? For optimistic rollouts, 7 days. For ZK rollouts, between 2 hours to 24 hours. So the fastest in that regard. For more, it takes 1 to 2 days. Now, for transaction costs, optimistic rollouts have a higher cost since they need to store more data on chain. For ZK rollouts and more, we reduce this cost by only posting a portion of the transaction data. So think about it as maybe when you need to send a file to your friend or a picture that a photographer sends you, and then you decide to compress it first before sending it over. So we do something quite similar, and I think every ZK solution does something quite similar, which is why transactions are cheaper on more and also other ZK solutions. So the next is batch cost. So batch cost is very an interesting pattern because optimistic rollups and now more have low batch cost submission, but ZK rollups have a higher cost. Now, everyone I mentioned that ZK rollups have to submit proof regardless of if there's a challenge period or not. So regardless of if there's an issue or not, for each batch they submit, they have to generate a ZK proof and they have to submit it also. Now this actually incurs more cost for them, which is why you see the batch cost is way higher for ZK rollups than say optimistic rollups or even more. So in terms of scaling potential, I think every approach allows for like significant improvements, but we chose a modular architecture, so we'll be able to upgrade every single part of our structure or every single component of our architecture without actually disrupting the service. Now, there have been a case where it actually had to pause to fix an issue, and there have been cases where it actually had to pause to upgrade. With more, we actually never need to pause. We could upgrade any part of our structure, we could upgrade any part of our architecture without even use another system. If you want to upgrade the ZK side of things, we could do that by running as an optimistic rollup. And if you want to upgrade the optimistic side of things, we could do that by running a rollup. For instance, recently we upgraded to allow users to perform like EIP 7702. However, was the technical upgrade. However, those are familiar with it. It was the latest upgrade on Ethereum. So we upgraded our system without any single user noticing or without there being a single lag on the network. And just upgraded the side of things, and every transaction continues to work as space, as quite effectively. So I think that is it. Go ahead. That's good. So if there are any questions from the technical side, I know we use a lot of people from the US. What? No. Oh, we just explained it. So our sequencers are handle consensus for us, and for the algorithm, it is like a tendermint. Tendermint to run the nodes. Oh, are you asking this proof of work, proof of stake? Oh, proof of stake. That's financing because you said you want to Europe and product. But for DPC instead is uh, 2 to 24 hours. So since using either DPC or DPC, why can't you just take why can't you just take the DPC this is 2 to 24 hours instead of okay mortgage what one to things. So why can't you just use this side of DPC instead of yeah. So the answer to that, and if you look at that the last slide where I talked about like the packages, you see the all item there was passport. Right? If we decide to run as a ZK block, we are going to have to submit ZK proof for every batch we send to the Ethereum. And in cases, for instance, now on both, we've been on mainland since October last year. We've not actually never had a single challenge period since then. But imagine if we were running as a ZK, would since October, would have had to keep submitting ZK proofs for every single batch since then till now. So this is going to make transactions more expensive or more. So right now we are running as an optimistic project, which is what makes transactions more expensive. Because if you remember, we said we wanted to be a consumer layer. And I was talking earlier about how purpose-built chains are. So since we know we need wanted to be a consumer layer, we knew two things have to be correct. We knew what needed to be cheap and also what needed to be fast. But there's also like a quiet thought option or quiet thought path, which is what needed to be secure. So when we knew this, when I said we knew this, then we started working on the more architecture. So we already knew what we had in mind before we started to building the chain, which is why you see we are the very first, which is why you see we are the very first chain to actually combine optimistic products with secure products. A lot of other chains build the chain first, then figure out what they want to do later. We knew what we wanted to do before we even started building in the first place. So in terms of what makes us fast, our hybrid system, in terms of what makes us cheap, our hybrid system, and in terms of what makes us secure, our sequencer system. Are there any questions before? Okay. Please clap, clap. So I think I want to 10 hours session. I know that we have like a lot of questions. So we are going to name them after the session. It's available at the end of the event and after the thank you very much once again. That was a good one. And thank you very much for asking your point. I'm waiting for the teaching. When did you? So I'm back. There are more uses. Okay, so that was good. I hope we learned a lot from that. And I believe what Kenneth has mentioned, we should start using on more. Actually, it's something I'm looking forward to. Before we move on to the next, we want to do a few things. The first also, there's a pipeline. your laptop, phone, remember the Wi-Fi is like this is the password. Screen quickly connect to it. That does not mean that it's focused on using your phone. Instead, also focus on the talk and talk. But there's free Wi-Fi for everybody to use. So with that in mind, so I want to ask a question. We have a full house right now. How many of us has made a social media post right, for this event? People are not to 10. Ah, okay. Okay, no problem. So what I want to do is very simple. Take out your phone. How many of us are on Twitter? Everybody. Some people are not to be surprised. You cannot connect your hand. Right? Yeah. So what I want you to do is very simple. Please take out your phone or take out your device. Take a photo of yourself or other fine person. Doesn't matter. If you don't like seeing yourself on camera, you can come across. If I don't have permission, newly wedded couple acted Africa. Take a photo of yourself or fine person. And post it on Twitter, post it on X, you can also post on Instagram and also TikTok as well. And then what I want you to do is to use the hashtag Build Africa, tag Material Star and more player. So I want you to do that. So freestyle doesn't have to go and just write the point tag. So what I'll be doing is I'll be picking the top 10 tweets that so after the next few sessions, I'll check for it, and after that, we get it's not only me. We get to decide what to do people. So the top 10 tweets, you'll receive a special part. So the hashtag is Build Africa, the account tag is Build Africa. Yeah. So snap yourselves, snap that fine bros, snap that fine gear, snap whoever you want to snap. But take permission. Don't snap no one. So don't snap me no jokes. On our last page there were talking jokes and no jokes. Yeah, you may explain. Hold on. Don't worry, take your time. Just wrap it. Let me start. That's not my love story. Love story. So, okay, so we have like 1 minute to do that before we want to. So I'm guys excited for the next section. And I really want to apologize. Like, there's no to be honest, like there's an empty space beside you. Yes. Can you help? Or more chairs are coming in. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so there's a seat in the front. If you believe there's an empty space and nobody has sitting there, it's fine. Okay, there's one there. There's one there. Somebody there. All right, so the person with the highest speed win. Not the highest speed, the highest engagement. Farm engagement. No, the highest person and the highest like. Right, the highest engagement. It's like go and have 20 retweets and only one. No, it's not like what's it called? Only one reach. Only one impression. It's actually possible that your retweet is more than your impression. Oh. That's why you're seeing 20 impression and 20 retweet. It's very possible. So what we do is we'll calculate it based on we'll combine them with your like your retweet and also impression as well. So let's see how it goes. Sorry, I agree. But there was a time I made it was immediately. I think people
Okay, so let's move on. Moving on, we have our second speaker, and this person is an open source fan. How many of us do open source here? Yeah. Wow. Okay. It's an open source fan. I actually enjoy his work on Twitter. I think I'm getting a lot of open source. I'm a fan as well. And he works on open source projects and also for global communities as well. And currently, he's the development engineer at KNS. So, talk today, talk today is going to be a simple one, but it's going to be very encouraging for us. So, it's about decentralized AI regress. So, as much as we're doing blockchain and Web3 as well, combining AI with development what to consider. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for no any other person to be over. Are you guys not laughing me?
Yes, that makes sense. Okay.
Hello, everyone. How are you feeling today? Yeah, I'm feeling today. I'm feeling good. Thank you for being here. You guys don't have about us. Okay, yeah. So, hi, everyone. My name is Toby Robert. I'm a software engineer and software relations engineer. Also, a builder and model now. I have about 3 years experience building and shipping software. The experience is ranging from front end, development skilling, Web3, and how to utilize AI. It's exciting to be here to talk about this very exciting topic, which is decentralized AI, the open source. Let's dive in. So, agenda for today. I'll talk about decentralization. Talk about compare centralized and centralized AI. Give a case study to Gaia and why Gaia sort of fits in to show AI to the centralized AI. And the call to action of how you yourself can also start today by contributing to centralized AI or centralized AI. Next slide. Great. Does anybody in the crowd know what everybody in the crowd here knows what centralization is? Like, you know, yeah. So, can somebody like maybe if I have enough time, somebody like if you don't want to go nowhere, I'll just continue. If there's somebody in the crowd like just in 2 words or maybe in a sentence, explain what centralization is. Okay, I just go ahead. I hear. Great question. Round of applause for me. Yeah, very centralization. When it comes to decentralization, what essentially means that you own the data, you control the data. There's a sort of like central authority that's like, oh yeah, give me your data because you can trust me, and because I'm your guy, I will not expose your data to you before. It's that kind of vibe. So centralization is a very useful concept, and now it has sprung into something really big. I mean, we have blockchain now, and we've had several should be for us centralization is sort of like consistent or composed in different ways rather. So moving on, centralization in AI. Um, Today's AI models, a lot of us here have probably used AI, right? Like maybe use I don't know, Claude or Gemini or OpenAI, right? Wait, are we all smart enough to not use AI? Like, we guys are smarter than everybody here. Everybody's not using AI. But AI today, you are very aware that, take for example, the Ghibli time I was doing everybody was like putting up their images on OpenAI and telling it, generate the Ghibli files, right? Or what's the prompt? The five version of my image, yeah, your boyfriend, yeah, family members. You put it there, tell it to generate the five version. So what that means essentially in a single line, I just give your AI your facial data of everybody in your family or your boyfriend and girlfriend. You know that's what that means, right? Yeah, exactly. But you still do it anyways, right? Because you kind of trust them, right? Exactly. So yeah, but moving on. Yeah, let me just sort of like circle back a bit to that. What that means is that they can use your facial or face or something, sort of like do like face, if using a malicious way. But I'm not saying that for now. Just suggesting or sort of like hinting at it. But why I brought that up is that I wanted to use that same centralized AI. And why that's a good segue is because with centralized AI, it's sort of like manage your data. You own your own data. It's yours. Right? As you know, any means that you want, right? Can use it to you can share with your friends, you can run on your phone, you can run it on your machine, on the server somewhere. Have it be your own model that you own and control. All the data that you need. That makes sense. Everybody confused now at this point. Yeah? So much confused. So we're still together. Is anybody hungry? No, it's coming. So yeah, the special idea here is that AI anyway, that you can run your models anywhere on any machine at any point in time, or on any device whatsoever. And you're able to like have the model that responds to you, that you can integrate to an application, or that you can build an agent, or that you can build an agent with, right? Moving on. Now, architecture of centralized AI. It's sort of I don't know. 1 second. I'm going to be back. I don't know. I'll be Wi-Fi. I represent again. But let me continue. So yeah, centralized AI architecture. With a centralized system, it's all about a huge server or maybe a cluster of server somewhere that run models or that are running sort of like models essentially with a database added maybe a database somewhere. Or maybe a vector here. Like it. Maybe it's a vector DB or a KB data store somewhere on a server and they're providing these models to you sort of using applications. Wait, some of us here have actually used AI via APIs, right? Yeah. So it's sort of like just put the API, maybe use an SDK and you wrote a system prompt for it, told it this is exactly what you are capable of doing. And then send the request in your application, maybe you treat the simple chatbot, send the request, give the response, right? Same architecture we are all familiar with client server. Everybody's still on board. Makes sense. So when I'm centralized AI, it's a bit different because in this case, so there may be a network that connects all these models together. But then you have access to like control your own compute, control your own server, and control which models you want to run. And models with centralized AI tend to be open source. Models that you yourself can just go to GitHub and find a way to like maybe improve on, contribute, even for your own sort of I don't know, GitHub page or GitHub repository and modify as you want to your own taste. Then what still following. Moving on. Now I wanted to like sort of give you a deeper understanding into this architecture thing because it's very easy to sort of like confuse centralization with distribution. Now from this image, can somebody like volunteer to read the notes at the bottom of the Venn diagram architecture there? Somebody or everybody. Centralized first. Let's go. Now you see the architecture centralized. Everybody. now distributed. Now distribution is not centralization. I just wanted to say this thing to help you clarify. Now you can look at the architecture or maybe sort of maybe try out when you get to because I'm not of the scope of this stuff may not actually show that. But I added this image sort of through a diagrammatic explanation of how distribution is not centralization to help you understand that nodes and you as a user would have their own domain that consists of nodes that you are running yourself with models, maybe Llama on this one, maybe Mistral on that one, maybe Coin on this one. And you're sort of running your own models training your own models, usually I don't know, things of yourself to help you, I don't know, use applications, maybe beautify applications, build I don't know, apps as much as you want, sort of tailor it to how you sort of maybe think. I know I've gone too far, but like everybody's doing all right, let's do some centralized here. So why decentralize it? Why am I up here to talk to you guys? Or am I just wasting my time? Yeah, I hope that's what it is, right? Am I wasting my time? So yeah, data privacy, like I mentioned, you own your data, you control your data, you are sovereign and the BDFL of your data. BDFL means benevolent dictator for life. Don't start with resilience and uptime. That's your data, your servers are always up because you control and manage that. You are always like you are in charge of like keeping making sure that you know ensure this model is running, ensure that if one fails, the other to like take up from where the other one essentially access anybody can contribute. Your friend can, team member can, someone from a different community can contribute to, and you know because it's an open source system, so can manage whether or not you want to accept that contribution. Right? Everybody has to sit up here. So yeah, that community setup. And now open source AI. Does anybody in the crowd know what open source is? What's like explain?
Please.
Actually, explain what they like. So open source essentially is software that software is released or maybe any program or would I say setup that is publicly available and you can contribute to modify or use, you know, for your applications or any use case. A lot of us have used React, use your 3GS, use that VM, use GitHub, right? So you probably like seeing that people is always online. And there's always issues, there's always pull requests. Somebody's always there to like maybe make an improvement somewhere. Somebody's always there to say that your code is shit or something. Right? So yeah. Essentially the open source sort of works that way. So that everybody has an opinion. Everybody can give their own thoughts and 2 cents. Now a case study. Now I'll show you a centralized AI application, which is where I do stuff at the level. Now look at this architecture. The like, the extreme left. Oh yeah, the extreme left. You see the guy with operators. Look at this architecture very well. This sort of like explains essentially everything I've been saying so far. Because guy happens to be a great case study for that. Not because I work there, I was saying it. I'm just giving you a good explanation. Also because I work there. So look at the guy with operators, the extreme left, right? I mean, can anybody see that? That's you controlling the nodes on that centralized. That's you sort of managing that entire infra, your being. Now to the middle, you see that every node has an ID. The ID could be like a wallet address. But guy sort of works on Ethereum to a certain extent. It's like do some stuff. The node ID could be like a wallet address. That tends to be strange. That identifies the nodes. We need to identify it as your node running on your machine, your infra. And now, looking at that, we need to know that we have an API server. That's when you run your mode, train it, do everything you want. Without two guys giving to you. You cannot pick an API URL and put it in any application you want. Guys with LangChain, use it with like LangGraph, use it with Lighter, use it with any other framework or agentic setup that you want. But AI, just a URL. And then in there you have a TV, very complete from a guy. You have a TV, and then you have like several models that you can just configure just one single command. Any model, any embedding model, or yeah, actually any LLM that you want, you can really just configure with the same command. And you know that model, an image gen model, a video gen model, or a text gen model. And in there, everything is managed with the runtime. So we use something called a Wasm Edge runtime, which essentially means that it can run on any machine. Wasm is not assembly. So you can pick the guy node, put it on the I don't know, or an Acer machine, or put it on a MacBook, or put it on your phone and run any guy node on that machine like seamless. Everybody still following. Are you confused? We are confused. Oh, very sorry, apologies. So what I mean is that is it the Wasm Edge part? Okay, yeah. So what I mean is that so there's a sort of layer that can work with any computer. Your phone is a computer. That layer can just you can just sort of put that layer, via like downloading it on your phone. And with the few like steps, you can easily have like an AI guy working like making your phone a new centralized network. That makes sense. Like I run any model you want, and kill that agent. Yes. So moving on. And then every node or cluster of nodes can be in something called a guide node. As I have two bit of guide of AI, guide of domain of AI. And that two bit of guide of AI, I know it's my preference in books, know my preference in movies, know my preferences in music, and can also respond as me. I have a few of the I don't know experience that I have because I will train with everything that I would have and then fits in the domain. So you can use that sort of node, for example, and like say digital AI application, five that product, or it could be the centralized one. You can just take that URL anywhere you want. And also train your own Rust model. You don't have to know Rust. I just put the data of Rust and every code of Rust that is available. Train your own dialog, put it in your editor, or you take your own task for your own expert. And you can ask questions rather, and do Rust. Then when you following, so there's so many things that sorry, I'm trying to my mouth on dry. So Gaia is really what, like I said earlier, there's so many applications of Gaia. Um, for example, in a school in California, they sort of had this sort of session where they used Gaia to be like a substitute teacher, teach students in California. And the node was able to like respond to students, answer their questions, give them strategic feedback, and strategic feedback and actionable feedback. And there's also like several other like applications of it. There are tons of people that like come to use Gaia to be like a sort of substitute of personal model because they can have access to any model that they want, like open source, easily run free compute. Is everybody confused? Not this computer, not this people. Eh? Why is he following? You're confused. Wait, let me show you something. Uh, so now, let me show you what Gaia was. Something like this. I escaped the come here. Now this is the Llama 70B model currently running on Gaia infra. And it sort of responds with like a JSON, a JSON data format of everything that represents that node. Now within this node, we can see that it's running the Llama LLM. Llama LLM. That model with this model, the Llama 3.370B instruct. Yeah, that long name, that the person name that. And the type charts, you can see the content size, the batch size, see every other data about because the free model that I'm using by a URL that I can use it. 1 second. And then that's an embedding model. And what this means is that for you to be able to train a model, there has to be sort of like a setup that enables you to create that knowledge for that model. Now, what I mean, you have a model, where somebody has used an LLM for you, say before or Llama or maybe Cloud Science. All of you have heard about this model, right? So now, for a model to be aware of something like that, you have to create something called embedding. Then what you follow it. Because models tend to be statistical. Like the model doesn't actually know stuff. That's what they are doing. What they are good at is guessing. LLMs are very good guessers. So you have a small model, or you have a normal model. Tell it to explain what who Sheiba is doing. You can probably like say a few words and say some things here and there, put together words. Or you say, okay, yeah, Sheiba was never in millions music or something because try to relate or something because you had a teacher of my stuff. Then what you following? Well, now, if you had a good embedding that created for that model, trained on everything that Sheiba is aware of, it will be able to respond in the exact way that he wants to because you've added more precision, you've added more knowledge, you fill in some gaps for that model to be able to be aware of what you want to be aware of. Then what's the following? I used to confused. Yeah. Let's move on. And I'll just show a simple demo. Uh, so my screen is not right now. All right. Let's show this insomnia sort of thing. The response from that side. Okay. So I'm just going to show you like a simple chart that have this model. Just find out you are. I sent the request, send me like a response in a very structured, compatible, uh, yeah, if open AI compatible with, yeah, I make sense. So now look at me making a URL to this slash completion endpoint. And now I essentially structured my response to the model telling me, you are a helpful assistant. This is what the model will do like this. Then what is following? And I told it, and this is me, the user, trying to send a message. All of you are aware of like chatbots interface, right? So essentially, what those people are doing is building the content for how this setup is. I think yeah, so I basically just did that like this post request. So now give a list of ingredients for a sandwich. And now essentially give a response in that setting, in that exact way. You see some slash n, that's just line break, not um it's not gibberish. So it gives it like a very good response. Talk about the number of tokens that you use to generate that response. I'm also giving like model that responded back to me. Then what's still following. So centralized AI is really cool, but it isn't like what I say a huge shift from how you going to centralized AI. It just means that you have more access to your data, more recipients, and then you have more community contributions in how you going to move forward, how you are able to like harness the power to ensure that you're able to see how centralization can fit in with AI, if that makes sense. Everybody to follow it. So what is this platform? Thank you. So final slide. I'll actually like tell you to go test out yourself. Check out your AI. Play around with it. If you have any issues, tag me on Twitter and report it. So call to action. Call to action. You can actually get started today contributing to centralized AI. You can contribute to models, you can come to the island and say about it. Say like, I don't understand, don't worry, I'll check it out. I already mentioned like 4 equals there, so I'll see your, I hope to see your full request. So, support the movement, advocate for AI, try to centralize AI, take a shot. Even if you don't want to use it, just take a shot and see how it works. And I put this screenshot here to show you the amount of nodes currently on Ghana at the moment and the amount of throughput. Throughput just means like the speed of response, speed of like, okay, send a request, how fast it give you back the response. Makes sense? So this is the amount of throughput over much more value deployed. We hope to take that started for you. Thank you.
It seems that you guys really enjoyed this session. This club is very resounding.
That was a good one for a number of reasons. One, it was short, straight to the point.
Okay, thanks.
Two,
Yeah, well, that's
very detailed. So, thank you, Tony, for that. Let's move on to the next section.
That's 5 minutes.
So, we're coming on the next speaker. But before then, let me ask, have we made it? We made it to it. Has everybody made it to it? So I'll check back again next time. 10 minutes or so. So let's give more time, 30 minutes. Check back again. Who has made it? So we're moving on to the next speaker. Using talk more about, how we can get that also. All right. So our next speaker is Ifra Nwanko. Everybody say, I don't pronounce that Ifra is a passionate developer solution engineer with over 2 years of experience in enhancing developer experience and driving with the he founded Build Space Africa to promote software adoption and co-organize the CA Summit, attracting over 17,000 organization registrations. He's a skilled communicator and a technical expert in Solidity and React.js. He's enjoyed speaking at events, exploring new technologies, and outside that, he likes to be in the team. Guys, with resounding clap, 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 welcome to the welcome to class. Welcome with me, Mr. People.
I, uh,
So you people should be mindful. We are on live. We are good. Please. I don't know what it is now. Say it is.
all right. Hi everyone. Good morning. So just need to stand up and sit down. Like like they mentioned, I like so you guys have to sit down for a while. Like just stand up 1 second and instead of when. Okay, now let's run it up. Okay, you can sit down. You have a seat. My name is Joshua. That's the one that my mom gave me. Okay. Most of them for people to find out today. Yes, I'm a global relation engineer. Uh, my background is content engineering, React, JS, and React Native precisely. So, but for the past 3 years, I've been doing dev. I mean, before that, I've been doing dev but without the title. But for the past 3 years, I've been doing dev professionally. And I currently work with High Partners, which is the number one crypto agency. We work with top 10 crypto projects. We're not allowed to mention most of them for obvious reasons. And for the past years, I've been providing server as a service to these companies and also consultant service to other companies. For that, so this is the typical developer journey from discovery stage to scale. So from the moment you first discover the project you want to build on to the moment you don't just but you're able to use them to build something, something that thousands of users are going to be making use of your success, right? We just don't want people to be able to deploy their first smart contract. We want people to also be able one project on anything. So for context, I'm going to be referencing blockchain a lot because that's my domain at one end. So most of the examples are going to be coming from there, and also the company I work with. So we're trying to make sure that, as you can see on the screen, covering this is have to go up and down. We're trying to make sure that we reduce steps from discovery to scale. So yeah, but why should we do this? Why bother? So there are a couple of reasons, but I'll just be looking at three. The first one is what's attracting developers, which I already mentioned, right? You want more people to use your SDK reliably. That's just it. The second one is what we need to make sure that they're satisfied and they're not done work with the competitors. Third, your KPI and keep your job. And this is the job for every guys in house. So you have to for experience for your company. So you need to up your KPI. And KPI can mean different things to keep your job. Uh, then how do you do that? Okay, first and foremost, understand your products. So there are lots of ways about it. Imagine up here and started stuttering, started saying things he wasn't sure about. Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of people won't want to pay attention to him. So very, very important, both as the builder itself and the core software engineers within this particular product and the advocate people who go on to talk about this product. Very optimal. Understand every single part of that project as much as you can, not just technical aspect. Like the community side, you need to understand it. The more you understand the product, your work is better for you. So take your time, do your assignment, do the basic, understand it very, very well. The second thing is to create so that you really can't target everybody. Just a lot of our clients have tried to do this in the past, they just want to get the past, and you end up, having a couple of that's high effort and low results. So what's niche down to a particular set of people? And how do you even know the people that you're going to target? That's why you need to understand your product. You really need to understand the solution that you are providing. You need to know who are moving it. So, for example, if you're building something for youth developers, you are targeting providing intermediate scale developers, right? You are targeting Web3 developers, or you are coming to an event like this to talk about it. I'm pretty sure most people are not going to be interested, right? When you're going to an event where there are a lot of other game developers and then you're talking about whatever library you built on Unity and how they can take advantage of it, it makes more sense. It's a good return for your time, effort, and money. So we need to create a persona, create like a target audience. Yes, that's very on. Well, who, who value the solution you're providing. So, and this obviously based on the project you're working on. So create your persona after you've understood your project. Now, a very, very important step or this your developer experience. So if you have one already existing, most likely the case, you need to constantly audit your developer experience. Ideally, every single work, every time there's a change log, every time there's a new, you need to audit your developer experience. So this is our first step in all work with new clients aside. So first of all, after the consultant phase and this is current developer experience, we need to understand what the developer who is trying to build on your network, on your project, what do they actually do, right? I will have to also, if I had just knowledge about the project, I will pretend I didn't know about it, right? And actually go through it like someone who's seeing it for the first time. Now, this auditing comes in different stages. So, um, here's the developer journey map on the screen. Come to the first stage. So, first from the discovery, right? As you can see, on the discovery stage, where the developer actually get to learn about you first? Where do they see you first? A lot of times it's at events like this, right? A lot of times it's on Twitter, it's their friends from Instagram. So you actually do your research and sure that okay, your SEO is ranking properly. To make sure that your social media, you're not just talking about some random marketing stuff, you're also creating technical content, creating developer content, something that you can see, like and click, right? Then the evaluation stage is where developers are But so your name sounds cool, but they want to understand what you evaluate the solution of what I'm trying to do, right? And then from the evaluation stage, they go to learn. After they evaluated and decided, okay, I think this project is cool and I want to build on it, they go on to learn. And remember, at every stage, there's always going to be something missing, right? And it's okay sometimes, quite sometimes it's not. Why I say it's okay is because you really can't satisfy every developer. For example, when you get to evaluation stage, someone who has been a program for advanced mathematician falls into the project like you know, and they're like, this is like simple to understand, this is simple, right? But someone who is entirely to be like it's not like that program. I'm cracking my head. So it's good to what's for the guys are able to really craft out something that balance out but it's possible it takes time. So but just know the people that you're targeting at the moment, people that you value the most at the moment, that will help you know exactly where to channel your energy. It takes time to cater for everybody. So just know your priorities first. Cater for them, make sure that they will be there, then you can move on to the next persona. Then on your left, the learning stage, please make sure that your documentation, we still get that the documentation like, okay, let's just move next time. Then on the next page, after they learn about the list of your chain, the list of your project, they now start building projects on it. What really do they get to face, right, when they're trying to implement your robots into their own projects, right? How many steps do they have to go through? They have to subscribe to a different third-party service and then import the API to your own service. You need to also go through all those processes yourself and see and make sure that they are as seamless as you can be. And I'll tell you how you can make that seamless in the use. So the next stage is the scale, right? Okay, the scale. This is very important. A lot of times we only stop at the use phase. That's where we get people they just do workshop. Global get to deploy their first smart contract, they get to be their hello world application. And then the next thing you're wondering why you don't have good ecosystem projects. You're wondering why people are not able to actual software that have active users that bring money and value to your ecosystem, right? So this scaling aspect is now where you now provide support to people who are building. And by support, it means different things obviously. For some of them, brands, right? You give them brands, you give them bounces, some of them even be connecting them to your ecosystem partners. Let's say that you have ecosystem partner that provide storage service, centralized storage service. You can just connect them to them and they get to this is the stage where you support those who are building to scale on your project. And a couple of projects are getting right. You really look like of Davis, Solana, they have usually supported builders and scale the ecosystem. So now the solution, these are different stages and possible challenges that are going to be. How do we solve some of these things, right? If you notice, I also wrote something below. Obviously, I can't cover all educations, but yeah, different types of projects, and I really can't cover everything now. So, but let's take it. First, is drop your ego, right? As engineers, most of the times we want to prove that we are smart. I don't like anybody else, but I get it 2 times in length. We figure that this really
To check the
and
comment.
once you really put it in your life, you don't even want people to know that this thing, you just want to like feel protected. So sometimes you have to stop it, right? Remember that you're doing programming, right? I'm not for robots. As fast as possible, right? That's what you have to do. And also, for, not just for, but also people who get to content, because that's most likely the first thing that developer run into after discovering it, right? You also have to make your very, very concerned that you also get that in a now abstract and abstractable, right? So I want to try to run what application on a project and I have to open 5 different terminals, right, to run the hello world application. When I got to the fourth terminal, I got tired and that's not good. That's not a good developer experience. So if you're reading anything that is bring into their own project or they're going to be done, try as much as you can abstract this complexity into a command, like just one command line that runs everything, right? And that's why today you no longer do pattern config for React project, just to create React app. All of those things are abstracted that app, and you just have to set up your project seconds and you're going. So abstract anything abstractable. Now, that's a report from Microsoft on developer experience from last week. But how you remember we're talking about how to improve this. And we talked about abstraction. Now you have code samples. I can use tools like the service to add code samples to it. So when a developer comes to your documentation site, you need to give them a sense of success in the next 5 to 10 minutes. You need to give them a sense of I've achieved something here. They don't feel like they've learned something new or they've done something new on your project. The first 5 to 7 minutes are that they're going to do more, right? And how do you like ask code sample? So that's where you get to see code snippets on the documentation side, and you're able to just tweak the code snippet a bit. Maybe just change the output of the command, and you're able to see results immediately. That gives you a boost of confidence and make you want down the project. Now, SDK is obviously the developer experience, just abstracting it into SDKs and then developer just use as they go. Build kit is another very good one, right? And we experimented with it at really work. So a lot of times to get to see, especially for their tools or any document therapy, right? People come, they deploy their first smart contract and they're like, what next? Right? Sometimes not to deploy that first smart contract, take them time, except for popularly known players. So what we do at Type is that we encourage our clients to use Quizlet. So this is essentially like an example application. You just want this to be able to clone these people, let them not do any setup as much as you can. Don't let them similar to the code sandbox, right? Remember, people get a sense of success in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So this things have worked over time. Obviously, branded with a couple of features that you want them to first try out in your project. So this is usually typically will include the top features that you want developers to discover in your project. And they already like reviews, functions, and the UI components. Just need to clone the repository, maybe add your EMPs and the project itself. Then another one is open source example project, right? So a lot of times people ask, how can I use this project to build real life applications, right? So you've seen this project, you try the example application, develop one. Now you're now wondering, how can you do like what use cases can I do in this project? So, and when they can't find use cases, they're also going to drop off. So it's very clear that you have open source example project. So this can be, uh, let's even say a weather application. This on your project. Simple calculator application. Yes, something as simple as that. Anything you think as the engineer, as the developer, that people can build on your project. Build a very tiny version of it as open source. People just need to have a look at it and see the kind of project that can be built on top of your own projects or your own subject. Okay, now still talking about dropping your info, you need to make your article as concise as possible. Most of the times when I want to read that, and I'm pretty sure almost everyone here do the same thing. When I want to read an article, I press scroll to see how long it sits or not. If you've done it, I use the article. Yes. So if I scroll and I see that article is short, I will get more excited to read through, right? But if I scroll and for the past seconds I'm still scrolling, I just grab everything, enter ChatGPT, let ChatGPT summarize it for me. Chicken. So I don't want to do that. That's even if I'm interested enough to start going through that extra process. But if you can, try as much as you can to make your technical. Yes, I get it, and I've been there before. You want to maybe your line manager or even other developers that you're actually very good with your technical abilities. But as much as you can use simple words, use simple, just like I'm talking to you guys. Now, I'm not trying to use any ambiguous or just use simple English. Just try this thing. It does not make sense to try to overcomplicate it. Then make your videos fun and educative. So for that, I want us to give a shout out, a round of applause to Yinka. Yinka is on here. So I want to round of applause to Yinka. So, Yinka has been doing this very fun and educative videos. And videos. So if you learn solidity using blockchain university on YouTube, you understand what I mean by making videos fun and very educative. It makes this video very right? And not some boring video where you have to like sit and watch someone sit on the screen for like 1 hour and only do something that you should have achieved. So the idea is to make people keep them. Remember, attention span these days is very low. And even that of the developers is even smaller. So you need to make sure that whatever thing you are putting out there for them to contribute is very engaging. So still on the drop your ego. I know I'm a professional on that because sometimes you want to do. Now, next thing is um, you need to get feedback, right? You need to get feedback from developers, people that you are dealing with. If not, by going a different direction, not knowing that what they want is an entirely different thing, So, but how do you get this feedback? I don't recommend sending out survey forms or even doing targeted ads, but developers don't like it, right? If I'm going to Twitter and I see a project running ads, I'm not going to assume that you're a scam. Yeah, so developers don't like that. That's based on research and also survey. That's that they're not going to feed that survey form, but you can still send it out anyway. So for their three methods that works, number one is add feedback page. I should have added the screenshot. Yeah. Okay, Yeka is back. So we have to give Yeka his flowers back. So everybody, round of applause for Yeka for making very fun and engaging videos. So yeah. So I wish I added a screenshot of what I meant by adding the feedback. But so if you go to some some documentation site, example, Mood Network, right? You see on every single page, you see like the feedback button. How satisfied are you with this? How then react to stakeholders. You can also like send feedback, like edit that particular page on GitHub, which is also another form of open source. So adding those features to your documentation site help developers give you feedback on what they like, right? And I'm also going to mention the two later that I can use to track how big is your documentation site. Let's have a channel, technical channel. So you see a couple of projects. They have general channel where people discuss random things. And when someone runs into a technical problem, they are scrolling through old messages, starting to see what makes sense and what does not make sense. But if you have the technical channel where you can ask technical questions, right? People are more coming in there and asking questions that looks to people because they know that whoever is in that channel is going to understand that they are trying to bend down with them. But it's a random general channel where people are talking about different things. They're talking about price, market, and no one asks that question. So you can have a dedicated technical channel where people ask developers ask questions and you can get feedback. And then the third one is to post AMA. This is a very, very good way to get direct feedback from developers, right? Just post AMA is talking about specific features that your software or your chain is not doing, and get that from them. What challenges are they facing? Note them down. This are more the main ways to collect feedback from developers building on your change, your project, whatever it's using your SDK, setting up surveys or running targeted ads. Now, another way, remember, we're still on the topic of how to improve overall developer experience, right? How to make sure that the developers who are building on your project are being very, very good. But another point is to recognize what active development, right? If, if you're building on Chain and you're also running on Chain and then Chain is recognizing you more, not just by giving you brand, they're also giving you publicity. That's what I mean with your branding. That is how that you want to move to people because they recognize your efforts, right? So it's very, very important that find ways to recognize people who are active. Sometimes as simple as shout out, right? Just shout out to people who are doing it. Tell them that they are awesome at what they are doing. And then next thing that we try before, remember these things I'm mentioning are things that we try out with different clients and they work. That's why I'm not including everything. Right? Let's teach ambassador program. So we've experimented with ambassador program. I would say that they work. One thing about ambassador programs is that they help you get to places that would have taken you so much time. So, for example, when okay, I'm not supposed to mention the project name, but we'll have this project that will run. Ideally, they wouldn't have thought of expanding even into the African region, not more of Nigeria, right? But because instead of an ambassador program for them, these ambassadors are people who are super interested in their tech, their money, people who are super interested in your tech, right? And they're from different parts of the world, people from Germany, India, UK, anywhere, right? And you just empower them with knowledge, and they are carrying your projects on their head, right? They are connecting with local developers, and those local developers they are connecting more connected with your project, other than just chatting with you on Twitter. So I'm just going to now. This is the part that most local relation engineers don't like, but it's extremely important, right? You have to measure, you have to actually track what's right? Except you have you have enough time with and have enough money to you need to track what measure you need to when you're running different campaigns, you need to take each of them gives you each of them has low effort and high results. That's an indicator of campaigns, right? So you have to measure, see what works, not just campaigns, you also have to measure like articles, right? You can use post form. I highlighted this here. You can use post form to measure how people interact with your documentation, the page where they drop off, how long they spend on each page, and how social movement where they actually when you find it difficult, you need to measure these things to be able to find out what type of activity they like to doing. Same with you. So you really need to measure to know how to do. If not, you don't know if you are improving or not. Then, okay, yeah, I think that's it. So let's take questions. You guys have any questions? So no questions. Yes, so keep spreading developer joy. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Joshua, for that. That was an interesting session. I think that was fun, and we all learned something from it. So that was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed that. And then also on how to better keep. And I hope you did as well. So, without wasting any further time, um, when Joshua was giving his talk, he made mention of somebody like twice, mentioned Yinka twice. So, and I'm very excited to let you guys know that Yinka will also be speaking. Will also be telling us, like, how to privacy, not by accident. But then, I want to. How many of us know Yinka? Okay, only few hands. Okay, so Yinka is literally uh, the person who makes the most engaging short video content for developers in Africa. I can't argue that in terms of blockchain. You can argue that. Please raise your hand. I'll counter you with evidence. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Yinka. Tell us about privacy, not by accident.
That's the one. All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Olayinka. I am a developer relations engineer. I work with the people over at Million. So Million is doing really interesting things about privacy, and I promise that I'm not trying to shield Million in this talk. I'm just trying to talk about something that I find to be really interesting. So the topic of my talk uh, is privacy by design, not by accident. While I was thinking about this talk, I wanted to make something different. I was like, I'm quote unquote known to make developer content, which Joshua alluded to. And it made sense to sort of come in here and talk about several how to make really great content, how to do stuff that people enjoy. But I was also really, really enthusiastic about talking about privacy because I think in the world we live in right now, privacy is super, super important. And to give you a quick backstory of why that is the case, every single one of us here has used ChatGPT for sure. Open AI has all of your data, everything. If you've ever done this on evening trend, they have your digital data. You can sell that, you can do anything with that, right? So, when you are aware of these things, you think about how you give out your data and the organization. We've been taught to next slide, please. We've been taught to trade privacy for convenience. Many of us here have much time creating new credentials and everything. So we've been taught by big tech really to give out trade privacy for convenience, but it always comes at a cost, huge cost that we don't really know about because we get the benefit of whatever we're trading convenience for. Now the problem is all of this is by design. Every single organization, Facebook, OpenAI, every single one of them, they know exactly what they're doing. They're deliberately creating platforms that will extract data from you. Because that's how they generate revenue. That's how they make money. They need say you're not paying for the product, that's the product. The funny thing is, if you pay for ChatGPT Pro, they are still collecting your data. You are still the product, even though you are paying for it. So privacy isn't listed. It is intentionally excluded, right? They aren't building this and extracting your data from email or patient data, Android, your shopping data, everything that delivery taking on. I think some of you may have had talking to a friend about your wristwatch. You see an app, Instagram, voice data while you're having a conversation. Now, on the surface level, it's not a big deal. But you're doing it. You're looking for a wristwatch. Well, you begin to talk about more personal things that people should not hear. It has. Um, so, our data fuels recommendation engines, like I talked about, ad revenue, and AI model. When GPT came out, I can't remember when, but the first early model, it was done. Anyway, we tested them. All of this has been a little bit presumptuous to think that we have that much data to do it. But the point is, it learned from us. Everything GPT knows, learned from every single human or every single public content that has gone on the internet. Taking all of that and able to self-learn, able to give you things back. So all of our data is filled with communication Twitter ad, Snapchat ad, YouTube ad, everything. It just fuels all of that. And again, the surface level, this makes sense. It's a fair trade-off. I get really good user experience, customer experience, if I just need to trade and use it. What big tech profits from? The next slide, yes. Forget that we can play control. Big tech profits from surveillance capitalism. Said, they listen in on the conversations, they go through your, WhatsApp has this privacy end-to-end thing, right? But then they have access to most of your data, right? So all of this isn't a mistake. They aren't building these platforms and forgetting to add privacy. No, they built this platform to extract data from us, right? And when we begin to think about how important our data is, we begin to realize that it's not a very um, it's not a very pleasant experience as a customer, right? And obviously as a developer as well. If you are beginning to build products, and I'll get to that later in slide, we need to think about it differently. You need to think about how you are serving your customers differently. I mean, honestly, again, we need to consider making money. You need to make money, right? But there are other ways to make money where you aren't just extracting data from your customers. Next slide, please. So the solution to this, there are solutions, a bunch of them, which is why I keep saying that it is not by mistake. Deliberate attempt to get every single piece of data from every single one of us to make a shit ton of money. Excuse my French. The solution to privacy technology. So the first one is zero knowledge proof. Now, if you're familiar with zero knowledge proof, just show of hands. Ever heard of ZK? All right, awesome. Zero knowledge proofs are a way to prove something without revealing data. You can see how this may be convenient for an individual. So let's say I want to get a watch, talking about a watch, and somehow the iPhone has zero knowledge proof. What that would look like would be, even though you're listening on my conversation, right? It doesn't expose that data to Instagram, right? So it doesn't just give Instagram every single thing that they have extracted from me. Right? I had to talk where I went into more depth about zero knowledge because I won't be doing that with this stuff. I would encourage us to do more research. But zero knowledge proofs are one of the many ways we can attack, if you will, the current landscape that exists with applications and building privacy into our products. So the next slide, the next piece of technology, next slide, please. So the next piece of technology are called trusted execution environments. I promise I'll make this as high level as possible. So trusted execution environments are actually really, really cool. They are one of the ones I'm more fascinated about recently. So a trusted execution environment is, as the name suggests, an environment that is trusted to execute data. All right. So again, with privacy, big tech, how everything works at the moment is they're listening on your conversation, they're able to extract it word for word. They know exactly what was said, and they have all of that. A trusted execution environment would suggest that Instagram, for example, is never has zero exposure to your data, but it's not able to recommend watches for you. But it doesn't store that in its data. It can't sell that. That's also contradicting because it doesn't store that, can't sell it, you can't see ads because ads are recommendation engines, right? However, as we are building this technology, infrastructure for this technology is being built, there will come a time when your recommendations are processed and it's still secure, right? And technologies like zero knowledge proofs, trusted execution environments, and a few others I will get to as we progress, enable us to solve privacy focus problems. Another one is multi-party computation. No one holds the full data, only partial shares. You can think of this as like blockchain nodes that are spread across different nodes on the network. And whenever computation needs to be done, pulled together and processing happens, right? I encourage us to like, go back and just like dig over these pieces of the technology because it is the future we're going to build anything that matters. And the more, I think this one is actually the more complex one of the bunch, but it's also the coolest one of the bunch. Fully homomorphic encryption. Compute on encrypted data without needing to decrypt it. This doesn't make any sense when you think about it, right? It is telling you that, oh, hey, there is a ton of data in this box. I don't know what that data is, but I can compute every single piece of information in this box without knowing what it is. You can see how that preserves your privacy. You can see how nothing is. You can see how your conversation stays secure. You can see how recommendations that are suggested to you are still locked in. Right? So these are the solutions we, expose ourselves to as developers, enthusiasts, whatever you want to call it. And we begin to think about them when who knows, 2, 3, 4, 5, every single one of us could build a really beautiful piece of technology that changes the world. And my prayer, my hope is that we incorporate privacy into this piece of technology. And obviously, these are tools you can use to do that. Again, and the future is privacy by default. So the title of the talk is Privacy by Design, not by Accident. And I talked about how big tech deliberately practically sabotages us by stealing our data and selling them. But what that future looks like is taking privacy into the products tools we build. So you're building a smart wallet, you're building a mobile app, you're building anything. You are thinking about privacy. You're ensuring that your users can trust their data in your hands, right? So we need to build products where privacy is the starting point, not a last. Zero knowledge proof, for example, I thought of a last minute path for um, privacy as far as blockchains are concerned. And blockchains by nature are very public. We're familiar, it's public, everything out there. But when we think about solving and onboarding a lot of people onto the blockchain, we are exposing a lot of data, right? So if you are a medical practitioner, or a doctor, someone who is, and you want to, get into the future technology, which is the blockchain, a ton of nodes, it's public, it's decentralized. But whenever a patient comes in, they take a scan or whatever, and you process it through Ethereum, Polygon, whatever. And it's public. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry can go in there and see your patient's data. I don't know about you. Me, I don't want
data to that problem. You can see how the medical field cannot use the bot because it is public by default. Tools like zero knowledge proof enable us to encrypt the user's data without exposing it to the public. And if anyone needs to make use of that data, they can decrypt it on their end without exposing it to the public. So again, we need to begin to think about these things, products, whenever we are considering the future of technology, consider the future of the things we're going to build. And privacy equals trust. The trust is the product. The trust is the product feature, and trust is the product feature. Pardon me. Privacy is trust. If a user can trust that every single thing I'm going to put into this application is going to stay secure, it's going to be more pleasant. But we've been taught to trade privacy for convenience. We don't think about it like that. I don't think about it. What's it called? You don't give me the trend. I don't know. We'll upload our photos there. I'm going to make a nice looking animation of myself. If another one comes up, if it is something we're still going to give out our data. Now, I'm not saying tomorrow or when this is going to happen in the next couple of days, it won't. Twitter is public. Your data, Twitter has all of it. Instagram, your data, Instagram has all of it. Snapchat. So at the core of all the tools we use, we've sold everything. Gone. And we'll be selling for a long time, to be honest. But if you're an engineer here, if you're curious about blockchain or whatever, it helps to begin to think about privacy. It helps to begin to think about what it all means as someone building a product that hundreds of thousands of people would use. And so hundreds of thousands of millions of people and enabling privacy to be taken. And like I said at the beginning of the talk as well, I'm not here to steal million and whatever, whatever. However, let's go. However, though, we're building really, really cool pieces of technology that enables you to build products privately. We had an internal hackathon a couple of years ago, and a few of my teammates obviously build really, really cool things. But who is familiar with Apple password app? It stores all of the password credentials, and whenever you need to sign it, yeah, exactly. So I built a privacy private version of that, where all of that data is stored and each user has their own data, but the backend server doesn't know what that data is. Like I can go through the schema, I can look at all of the data, I can look at all of the records, but I cannot see the encrypted data like username, email, password is hidden from me. But the user gets to see their username, email, and password. And that is one of the many things we can do with privacy in mind. Once you build a future Instagram, for example, we're going to encrypt a lot of things. Like the photos users share, the server isn't going to see that. The text and the stories and everything are all going to be encrypted. However, every single user experiencing that application sees everything because we have the technology that encrypts the data being sent and encrypts the data being and so again, not sharing whatever, stop by docs.million.com or reach out to me. I'll show you how to do some of this cool stuff. And lastly, privacy is default, sharing is optional, and exposure to that data is deliberate by big tech. And that's pretty much it for my talk. Thank you so much. There's supposed to be a last like collab, but yeah, that's what I'm doing. Awesome. If we have any questions, it's supposed to be a last slide. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to for me to go in depth into, I'll be happy to take them. Otherwise, I think I have done a stellar job and everyone understands everything that has been said. And thank you so very much for the time. Okay, sure. So while this question might have nobody really cares, I'm thinking, why does this person have to care about privacy? Like, as data is open, he doesn't really care. Like, as long as he can find his Gmail and do what he needs to do, check his down results, doesn't really care what. Like, so why should
in person that care about privacy. Yeah, that's a pretty good question. Do you have a question? Should I answer that or is it similar? Okay, can I answer that? So just hold it. Don't hold it. Hold it. So very good question because I started this off by saying we trade privacy for convenience. And what you just talked about is like, why should I care that Facebook has my data? I'm getting everything I need, right? You should care because the time they shouldn't have your data, they will take it. There will be times when you don't want anyone to know. Say, how many of us have personal notepad? You know, you journal. You have a few things to tell just yourself. I'm sure we do. Imagine that data is exposed to everyone and everywhere. Some of us are here, we used to have as a therapist. So ChatGPT about, the girl that responds to your DM. We thought ChatGPT about the guy. Don't do that, but if you do that, So my point is, it is first of creativity is just a language model. It is trained to be meant, except you prompt it'll tickle your hands, it'll indulge you. Now, you care about privacy because the moment you don't, you're lost. The convenience it affords you comes at a cost because it doesn't selectively pick which data to take from you. It takes everything. It takes everything. And then it begins to serve you based on what it thinks you want. So care about privacy because everything is going, every single thing, all your conversations are being heard, you're listening to every single thing. And that is not the world we want 2010, whatever years from now. So that is why I think we should care about privacy. We have a question. Thank you so much. It's okay, Gareth. So, it will be something that you think later and the back end will be aware of or should just stay to the back. Yeah. So how do you decrypt those data? Like you want to return it to the user, right? And like encrypting to the UI, user interface. Yeah. You have zero knowledge proof, right? Right. Encrypted. Right. So how do you decrypt those data? Not yeah. Yeah, good question. So this is technology. I'll break it down a little bit. So at Million, we have something called new, which is where all of the data lives. We now have new QL, which is what handles the querying of the data, decryption and encryption, right? So that's SDK is what does encrypting, so it encrypts the data and sends it to new data, right? And also decrypts the data and sends it back to the user. So none of that is being exposed to anyone else, right? Um, there are very specific ways you write the program, right? So that it encrypts and decrypts the data. You can obviously also choose to encrypt or decrypt, choose to encrypt certain data. So like I was saying in my app, I had title, website, username, password, and a note. So I encrypted everything from the note. So if I were to show the schema, I didn't plan to do that. If I were to do that, you would every single thing besides the notes encrypted. You understand? But the notes are public. It's just I wanted it to be public so I can tell the difference between decryption and encryption. So to answer your question, there is a tool that an internal tool we built that is made public for everyone to do with that handles encryption and decryption. Yeah, so and that is built on top of the fully homomorphic technology, MPC and MPC. So those are the two core technologies that we use to build the encryption and decryption service. Yes, thank you. We had another question from someone at the back, and we have another one there. So, I like to take it to you. I like to take that man and say, I appreciate you. Speak to me at the back, please. Thank you. So what about the people that want to how you don't over the household to up the study. What is that one? Okay, so for one, the app I built does not use zero knowledge. let me clarify that. Zero knowledge proof is kind of technology that solves privacy, right? Now, that being said, I had explained earlier that we have a tool that does the encryption and decryption. So we build we have write to node method, we have read from node method, we have update method, and we have so basically the whole 9 yards that comes to writing and processing data from an API, right? So in public API, you can make a post request, make a what else, get request, make an edit, update, and a delete request, right? Every other public API. It is the exact same thing. You can update to the node, you can write into the node, you can read from the node, and data from the node. And all of that is done, with encryption in mind. Yeah, so very good question because I built that into the app. So the user could update their password, update their email, and all of that without go to the back end. Last question, please. Does it have my uh, you spoke about exposure of data. Why it's very interesting. It's part of the thing that makes my life easier. It says that just like the example we're talking about food, someone and the next thing is just for it's precisely 100%. Where it becomes a problem like where how can I say able to break into any database and feed the data in that database and use that facility. So now my question is your technology now from your last question, it's like it's not even sticky there. So long as it's using uh, we like it is still going to be meaning that someone can come into me and so long it is being encrypted, it can be encrypted. I think the hardest one is Samsung, which they one load of machine, very powerful machine. So long it is encrypted, it can be encrypted. And then if we have a human attack, if we find a slight opportunity to come in, it is gone. So, but if you are based on that same knowledge you talked about, you know, you know, then you are not collecting users' data at all. The users are not free of it because they are not giving their data for anything and the machine is putting them and stuff like that. So, how do you circumvent that, or is it just still in development, or you can't think it? But I do know that. Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Zero knowledge proof is a kind of privacy preserving technology, not the only kind. I did mention trust execution environments or TEUs, NPCs, and FHCs. So those three other pieces of technology I mentioned are what we are focused on, what we build the infrastructure on. And obviously, not every single one of them. Zero knowledge has its trade-off. It isn't the best solution to privacy, right? It is a solution. It works. It just doesn't work well enough at scale. Now, trusted execution environment happens in the hardware layer. So think of the and all of the different components that make up the CPU. There is a particular component where whenever the computer needs to process data, it is routed through that chip. That is the trusted execution environment. That is what it's called, right? Say that again. Right, right. However, like trusted execution environment is an Intel-based architecture. So some Intel, I don't think it's some or all, I'm not particularly sure right now, but it is built into certain Intel chips. It's a hardware solution. And like I was saying, we have three other pieces of technology where we're using to solve this problem. So to answer your question, it cannot be um, because it is stored in a distributed blockchain network, right? There is this single centralized database still where the encryption is happening. So what Million is a very decentralized network, very similar. So every single one of these credentials that are stored on the network are stored across different nodes. I did not go into the low level skills of the architecture because I didn't want to do any of that. Basically, at a high level, from a high level perspective, you don't need to worry about your visa being high. I can guarantee that. Bro, he had quantum computing is the end game, if you will. So we are building to hopefully get to the point where quantum computing cannot. Yeah, this man is looking at me, so my time is up. Thank you so much. Yeah.
And ask like everybody wants to go now.
Are you tired? Are you tired? No. Want to go? Want to go?
That's what I want to go.
Are we hungry?
Let's go.
Don't worry, don't worry. I got you. I got you. Relax. 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 Okay.
That's I want to go.
Fix it. Fine. Anywhere. You know there's nobody sitting there. And it's free. Or it's a bag. There's one there.
One,
There's another one there.
two,
Where? Three.
three.
Okay. 4, 5. Okay.
One.
Yeah.
What else?
So,
Four.
yeah. Wait. We'll still talk. Don't worry about it. Ciao. Ciao. Relax. But then we have one more talk before we go on break. And then I have this like our social media winners. So I already have some t-shirts to give out. And then I'll come back. So immediately after the talk, get everybody. But then we have one more talk that is about AI that we need to just add to the mix. So all right.
Okay. So I want to ask a question. How many speakers have we had in the following?
Four. Four. Wait. Correct answer.
This is very interesting.
Can you get the speakers?
Excluding you just joking at the speakers.
Okay. I want to pick somebody to answer. I want somebody to answer. That's my main decision. Correct. Oh, yeah, no. That's that's
All right. The first person from the Igbo speakers on stage. Okay, that's all right. The first person is yes, then the second person was Popular. And then the third person was Unicorn. Yeah. In culture.
including English.
Fine. Everybody that said for this, all right.
Husband, you're welcome.
No, not talking about husband like that.
Okay, so let's move on to the next speaker. And after that, we'll go on and talk, get refreshment, take the photo, and all that. So the next person speaking is
Opinion. I'm not giving my name because opinion.
Say another time. No, don't worry. I'm trying not to bother you.
Okay, that is opinion. Very ecosystem, we have to speak Latin. Welcome.
Hi guys. Round of applause for yourselves for being here. So, up there, feeling like a guest pastor. You know how they call it guest pastor in church. And when they say, when the head pastor wants to introduce guest pastor, you know, but it's true, sir. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Um, respond now. Who serve you food? Jollof rice, very easy. It's true. Go on, we ready? My name is Rafael, and talking to you today about honing your intelligence and building on key facts, nothing to specify. Um, so that's a beautiful time. So let's get right into it. Everybody has talked, not everybody, but one or two people have talked about trying to see like this. One or two people have talked about you know, intelligence, artificial intelligence, centralized intelligence. I'm sure you see it in all your YouTube ads these days when you want to like watch tutorials or watch assistant or watch any other person that watches. So it becomes very imperative that we talk about it. We talk about what we can do with it because for some reason there's a disconnect. A disconnect between what it is, right, and what people can actually use it to do. A lot of people feel that artificial intelligence is for humans, right? A lot of people are not thinking about it, on user perspective, apart from when they are saying, oh, I want to use it to prompt so and so, right? So that's what I'm here to talk to you about, but in a decentralized manner. Um, this doesn't work. Okay, cool. A little bit about me. First of all, I'm not speak here. And, Idris and the Web3 Africa and both team have been really um, close friends with me. So when they said to come to the talk, I could not resist. Global ecosystem to be like higher. Higher is a centralized artificial intelligence network that powers a lot of the companies that you see around today. We'll get around to that. Second to the last slide when I showed you about people that we talked to. Before that, I was head of developer innovation at Fuel Labs, and I was previously on the TCM consensus building user experiences for MetaMask and Bitcoin. I also like to call myself a head honcho. That's what they used to call me. Head started public labs because we really did amazing stuff. Similar to that, but they are more on the different side. And I'm also the CTO of Trade Africa. It's something that we're establishing here, loans and remittance platforms for SMEs and small business. Apart from that, very little guy, very fun, and also be a one people really need to be. Yeah, before we go any further, I would like to say, first things first, in whatever context that is known to man, right? Community is never peers. I felt very, very compelled to put this up because in the ecosystem, there has been one or two, I'll call it very dark talks, but the people are not really, don't say things that you're not really aware of. I'm not trying to be a preacher here, but if you guys don't stop, right, you'll be no different from the leaders of this country, fighting for stomach infrastructure and who is feeding the crumbs. Ask yourself this question, right?
the money or the grants was not in the equation, we just keep fighting these stupid chain wars and these stupid community wars that we're fighting. It's a serious thing because it starts from somewhere, and then instead of people to build collaboratively, you are building in silence. I feel it's daft, I feel it's stupid, and I feel that people should stop it. The answer is not to you alone. Don't fuck up the machine that we have suffered to build in the course of the years. Enough of that now. Let's go to what we're here for. So AI is transforming our world, right? Right now we are living in, through that monumental shift. We have generative AI tools that are exploding onto the scene. You can do a lot of things with it. I'm going to ask two people real quick. What do you use AI for? Just look off the top of your head. Research. What kind of research? That's cool. How about you, madam? Oh, so you copied her. Okay. How about you, sir? For finding answers, have you? So, as a developer, you see that AI has recently, except you are like a core guy who chooses to do use the whole release, ChatGPT, whatever GPT system it is, have taken over Stack Overflow that we used to know and love before, right? Except you want to form, parents in the house, of which you're only doing yourself. You understand? It's true. It's true. So the one of them. So the power to automate, the power to discover, and the power to create, right? It's being democratized like never before, right? And it presents us all with like very extraordinary opportunities. But then there's a critical question. Yinka has asked it. I think Todd was giving a speech before, so gave a talk before, so you might have asked the question too. Who really or who truly owns the intelligence that is shaping your future, right? Amidst all of this excitement and this rapid advancement, that fundamental question is always there, right? And it is crucial for us here at Build Africa, right? And the African ecosystem as well. As this powerful intelligence that people build, as it becomes more and more integrated into our lives and into our economies, right? Who truly owns it? Who controls the narrative? Because as Inka said, right, the narrative has always been controlled. These things that you feel that you are seeing and using every day, it's all, you've seen the matrix. Who here has seen the matrix? Yes or no? Look, you review all of these things. The idea of building a software architecture or application is actually an experience. You're building an experience for the user, right? So don't think that this open AI and chat or whatever is not an experience. It's still an experience, but an experience with you at the focal point now. Not sign this agreement. No, get on it. You're already there. You are feeding me with your hands. It's not me that is asking you, can I use your data again? And the one that is asking me, I'm sorry, I just used the toilet and the pool was brown. Please, is this century? You get my point. You are the one that is readily using this thing. So who truly owns that data? And then you also have to ask yourself, when the tech boom came out, we were consumers, right? Well, let's start from the industrial age. When it was deep blue sea, whale oil and paraffin wax, we were consumers, right? When it got to electricity, we were what? Right? When smartphones came out, we were what? Now AI is out, we are what? Then you have to ask yourself, are we still going to be consumers? It brings us to that pivotal crossroad, for the continent, because you need to build for us, right? You have worked for them, remote jobs are super sweet and easy. But then at the end of the day, you still need to build for your folks. We need to adopt that mindset, right? Will AI, in Africa, primarily be a consumer of AI technologies developed, and controlled by all these few global powerhouses, the chat GPTs, the open AIs, the Anthropics, and the like. Is that what we're going to do? Or will Africa rise as an architect or a co-creator? Or even like, owning your own sovereign future? Because we don't own anything. We need to ask ourselves these questions. Are we building AI solutions that are deeply rooted in our cultures, our languages, and our developmental needs? The path that we choose today will determine whether we simply adopt usually or we truly own our intelligence and destiny. So these are some of the issues that me I have with AI, right? Knowledge averages downwards. We have Stanford scientists telling you that, yeah, ChatGPT is getting like more dense, right? Why? Because it's trained on a whole lot of parameters and there's not much specialization in it. Fine, you can use it to anybody that uses cursor the cursor ID and uses the chat feature, or anybody that uses OpenAI can always see that when you want to do something really complex, it fails. True or false? It begins to take you round and round and round and round in circles. So it's getting stronger by the day. For your little task, yeah. But for the complex ones, the ones where you actually need to perform, stop doing anything, right? What does that mean? The only solution, but they don't do it serious. Sometimes, especially when you're doing you're serious. Another issue I have with it, apart from it being like not suitable for complex stuff, is you have no control. Virtually no control over the right use of IP. Yinka and the other speakers have glossed over it, so I'm not going to gloss over it too much. But one thing that they did not touch on, right, is that as a business, right, if you're a business that is using OpenAI, there's something called your IP. You understand? And if you are feeding your data to, your business data to that, anybody can take your trade secrets. If the person has, a bad mind, you can't assume that everybody at this centralized companies has a good mind. It's always going to be that one person who his boss has told you're not useful in this company, and they're like, okay, no problem. And then you get caught in the crossfire, right? So a lot of things can happen when you use these things, when your data, your prompts, even your unique insights, when you're like, there's vibe coding and then there's vibe architecture. You're talking to the AI, you're trying to flesh out new ideas. It's not yours because it's on a centralized server somewhere, and somebody somewhere can scrape and pick it up and use it to do whatever they want to do, even if not malicious. We had a case of Sheung yesterday. I don't know who saw that tweet. Who knows Sheung Lan? We had the case of Sheung. They did amazing stuff with Hyperbridge, and how many weeks later, somebody else comes up with Hyperbridge. You don't even say, okay, let me not use the name. Even if you're going to use it, you came up with the name, the code, the IP, everything, and then you put it at home. Just because why? Because it's not going to complain, or because the person who built it is from Africa, and Africa does not have a voice. These are the things that you need to protect against. Nobody knows where they copied that from. You understand? But these things can also happen, with your data and with the prompts that you are putting into these things. Why are we stressing on what this is? It's for you to, before you know the solutions that you want to solve for, you need to know how serious the problem is. You can gloss over things and say, oh yeah, this one is wrong, but we don't really need that. But you have to definitely dig deep into why. Someone was asking why should I care about how they use my data? You could be using that to do something for yourself. Your government could be using that to do something for themselves. Why is it other people that get to use this thing and you don't get to use it? Anyways, I digress. One of the other problems I have with it is the cost and the scaling barriers of using this actual thing. How many people here, if I say, let's do a quick test. If you pay $20 for ChatGPT, raise up your hand. We have a room of how many people, right? And have the tools that can actually improve these people's work, but it's affordable to you. Open your mouth now. Is it affordable to you? Yes or no? So at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, you end up using the free tiers where maybe after 30 or 50 prompts. The one that annoys me the most is when you are using custom. If you are using custom and you take some, I don't know how many prompts, it tells you to wait. So me that I'm doing work now, she wait the 6:30. I mean, you get that kind of thing. My point is that API access can be very expensive, right? Can we have one house, please? API access can be very expensive. You understand? And as your application scales, this cost, it can choke you. You understand? You still have to pay for AWS if you're running a company, then you now still start paying for. So at the end of the day, right? Unlike this existing cloud service, where compiling all of your computing needs, you need to justify the cost delta of these things. The current network infrastructure that we have for centralized platforms are simply not scalable. Now, we have talked about the problems, right? Yeah, you still have privacy concerns to battle with. Of course, your data is not your own if you are putting it in let's talk about when they say people should come and scan their eye. What's the name of that one? No, okay, World coin or something of that sort. Yeah, come and scan your eye for 50. In Nigeria, the bill will not allow you to go and scan your eye. What do you use it for?
Money ritual.
Yes, and they unified it and it was fun. Instead of you to come to that center now, they're like, okay, make an anime image. I particularly to let me not lie to you. No, let's be honest. But at the end of the day, you are with my data. If somebody uses that data tomorrow now to make the driver's license somewhere and perpetrate whatever, it's not on them. It's for me. You willingly give it. I hope you understand what we're saying. So another one is the bias, and this is the one that is most important to you now, right? Because obviously the GPTs are trained on like I said, billions of parameters, which means that or which tells us that you can use them for fairly easy tasks. Sometimes if you know how to, wiggle your way through, you can use them for complex tasks. But when you're trying to use them to like solve the problems that are available or that have arisen in Ikorodu, where's the relevance for that sort of data? For the problems that are available in or that arise in places like Ibadan, in your locality. These are Western owned models. I'm not going to leave California and come to what other place are we? What should you?
Adegunle.
You know, you did before. I think you understand what I'm saying. Local relevance is also something that is a big problem because it's going to just gloss over what you have seen on the Google page. But nobody's really training LLMs as much as possible. You don't hear that in your local ecosystems that, oh, this person trained. I think there's one or two exceptions, but you don't really hear it. There's no local relevance to these models that you're using. I'm going to pay $20 for a piece of information I can get on Google. I hope you see the point now. So you need to, or we need to, as a people, as a community, as an ecosystem, start looking at these things. Now, I have some local relevance, like I said, you don't have the information of local people. How do you want to use that to augment for the solution that you want to use, for your local? Let's see what happens next. And then there's the innovation bottleneck. Of course, if you don't have this in a centralized model, right? If you don't have these particular, you know, let's say solutions at hand, it's not really anything you can do as per innovation. I cannot use California's products and say I want to do it for Mama that is selling paper. I hope you understand my point. So you are pretty much stifled. And therein lies the problem. Everybody is building what is the job to say that time? If you have built an app and you are not buying recharge card on the app, you have not built an app. It's failures, and at the end of the day, you don't have enough data, to power these applications or to make your informed search on these applications. And at the end of the day, you turn into a bill payer. You can buy anything and Airtel. That's not what you set out to do at the end at the beginning of time. Why? Because there's not enough available data for you to use. There's no sample space. And what this helps from you being a data analyst to you being a statistical person to you being a software engineer, this is actually the time for us to start building our data models, start training our data models. Because now it's you and your LLM. It's you and your LLM. You train yours, he trains it, and then we find ways for our LLM to communicate with each other. That way, nobody can come and tell me that we have over 200 million people in Nigeria. How? People not born yesterday. I hope you're getting my point. But when we talk about systemic problems, when we talk about, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, why? It's not as if people do not want to build logistics service, but they don't want to build P2P service. There's a reason why people will build and leave out. there's not enough data to power these things. It's left to you or left to us as African developers, as Nigerian developers, to build tailored for what we have. And how do you do that? Let's go to the next slide. Even though I'm the one holding the remote. Yeah. So we have what we call decentralized artificial intelligence, right? It's open source, it's permissionless, it's community owned. Now, why should it be the oxygen for Africa? The reason I use oxygen there because that Airtel advert, data is life, data is life. You don't know how deep it is. If you don't know in today's world, you're dead. You're just existing. You're not living. So it brings up the promise of DAI, right? What is DAI? Somebody has said it, but in a nutshell, it's that particular I would say infra, I would say concept. Let me say concept, where the infrastructure itself is distributed and control is not concentrated in the hands of a few. For Africa, right? Decentralized artificial intelligence is not just an alternative. It's supposed to be a game changer for us. It is supposed to be a game changer for us. Now, with decentralized artificial intelligence, we can achieve that sovereignty that we're looking for. African communities can manage their own data, they can train their own models sensitive to local context. What is happening in Lagos is not the same thing happening in PH, it's not the same thing happening in Abuja. But if we have developers in these places with these decentralized artificial intelligence networks, they are not as expensive as centralized ones, then people can begin to build their small clusters. And then when we come for things like this, we can talk. And what have you built? What have you built? We can link. That's how we build. Not all of that community is not. Who the fuck is? Anytime I think about that thing, it irritates me the more. It does irritate me the more. Moving on, moving on, moving on, moving on. So, what else does this signal? Centralized artificial intelligence, right? It means innovation, right? Innovation will be unleashed because by the time I talk to you, I was who knows use Alpha here? Everybody knows use Alpha, but there was a time not so long ago that Tojuku would be at every conference, every meetup. If you really know the you will not talk to. You will sit at the back, but you will be there. Why? Because at the end of the day, we're talking, we're conversing, we're asking what is going on, how far. And today, data is everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So these are the things. When you guys even come outside, what exactly is your aim for coming to the conferences? Come and listen. After you listen, you have to share, you have to talk. The conference is just the starting point. Your decentralized network should start from here. That's the point. Moving on. So it means innovation unleashed, but the permissionless environment where developers can build and deploy AI solutions tailored to specific African challenges without seeking approval from a central gatekeeper. And it enables true inclusivity. I know it's about. You can't have all these things and then, you know, have a carry that local man. So it paves the way for AI that genuinely understands if you're having localization of your data models, if you're training your own artificial intelligence models according to what is happening to you or what is happening to your environment. These things are the bread and butter. They did not achieve all of that by training on Nigeria data. First of all, it was from there. It was from there. Moving on. So, what it does in a nutshell, it solves those key issues of centralized artificial intelligence, meeting the rising demand from enterprise and consumers. Simple. Now, first thing it solves is you avoid the likelihood of AI eating itself to death, right? Users are becoming, they're reporting that, oh, GPT is becoming lazier. That's what I mean by AI eating itself to death. There's nothing new. It is what you give it that it brings out. True of us. Now, it addresses privacy challenges for enterprises. Now, there's a report that says that 45% of enterprises refuse to use centralized AI because you cannot be running any bank and then you tell them to come and use, maybe not Telegram, maybe Bank, for instance.
When you say some of these companies are archaic and they don't want to, when you say they're archaic and they don't want to innovate or something, it's because they would rather build theirs indoors or in-house. Imagine that with this company, whatever they are, being on open AI central server. Anytime they want to ruin you, they can ruin you. And when I say they, if you believe that it's someone that is the CEO of OpenAI and have house to sell to you at the Lagos Lagoon front. So, anyways, one other thing that it's going to solve is going to alleviate the privacy concerns for consumers. We talked about that. It's also going to lower the cost of running your own large language model. Now, how do you now do all of these things? This way, I'm going to shield what we do at Karen because we have talked about problems, right? But as we all know, problems without solution is what?
Okay. Sure, sure, sure.
Problems without solution is what? We want this solution. Anyways, moving on. So what we do at Gaia, right? At its heart, Gaia is an open source artificial intelligence network, right? That's designed to provide the foundational layers, right? Centralized knowledge bases, number one, the compute power, number two, and then the inference tooling that you need to create, deploy, and even monetize your own autonomous AI agent. I believe that we have all heard of AI agents, so I don't think I'm going to go into all of that. Now, the difference is that you truly own and control agents that you use. I'm going to give you use cases, right? The core components of the Gaia network is the Gaia nodes. Now, what are Gaia nodes? These are like your personal deployable AI servers, right? Anyone can run the Gaia node on your laptop, not with Windows XP, not the. You can contribute to that global distributed network where we have 100 people here in Lagos, we have another 100 in Abuja, we have another 100 from Ibadan. Everybody is running nodes. It makes that the cost is less for you to be able to deploy, your AI solutions or your AI agents on that network. You don't need to pay $20. The first page is an hyperbole, and one instance of a node was costing I think, $3 or $2 to run it for like 3 hours. You won't say that that's not a better cost, and you can turn on and turn off as you please. So instead of it running whether you're using it or not, based on the time that you use. But I digress again, anyways. So that's what the node is. And the exciting part is we at Gaia have already seen incredible adoption. As at Friday, end of close of business on Friday last week or just yesterday, right? We're at over 500,000 nodes across the globe. You can clap now, please. That's right. That's right. And of course, we also have Gaia domains, right? This is your unique sovereign address on the network for your AI agents. It's how other people, like I was saying, you build yours, you train your LLM and you build your own. Somebody else builds their own. It's through the Gaia domain that somebody can connect with Eric in Kenya, understand? And they can use both their agents to now power more successful products. It is through those Gaia domains. So I'm trying to give the definition and just give like the baseline use of what these things are supposed to do for you. Right? And then, of course, you have the agents themselves. These are the intelligence services that they build. They are trained on the knowledge you provide, you understand, and they operate under your rules and serve your specific purpose. One of the key differences is that OpenAI is billions of parameters. It can give you doctor answers, it can give you medical answers, it can give you agricultural answers, but with your own with things like centralized AI infrastructure, with your Gaia nodes and stuff, right? It's what you want. It's just for you, which means that you have a lot more bandwidth to do a lot more things, and it is more specific, and it can tailor your answers to the particular solutions that you are looking for. Is this understood? Hello, is this understood? Thank you very much. So we're going to go down to we're going to round up now. Like I said, we talk about Gaia anyways. We talk about the components too. So let me explain the flow. Oh, sorry. Sorry guys. So this is the basic architecture of Gaia, right? The users will interact with the front end app, right? And the front end app will connect to the Gaia nodes providing the API services. These nodes can then access the models that you have trained and the knowledge bases that you have had with the embedding systems, with the potential for revenue sharing for model devs and knowledge reports. So now, why it is sweet at Gaia is you are also making money because for software to interact with Tulu's node, right? Tulu would make some little, it's going to have to apply very, very low fee anyway. But Tulu still makes a killing or a profit from giving software its own, model to use. When software also wants to use Tulu's own, it's also going to make some money. Just like you are renting out your model. It's easy for the next person that buying from centralized sources, but at least this other person is still making money on the knowledge that they are passing across to the other person. Is that understood? Thank you very much. So let's go straight to the next one. So yeah, like I said, from the front end app, you get to the nodes. The nodes will be powered by the knowledge workers at the base. The knowledge workers can make their money. So yeah, in a nutshell, it's built for builders and it's built for users, right? Simplicity, ownership, and reward. What me I would call it. You can integrate your agents easily. Your data is yours through data models and ownership and all of that. That's going back to something else I would like to talk about, which is use cases, right? I'd like to see use cases of this thing. Use case one. We're in Africa where today if you own a shop or if your mother owns a shop, right? Today this person can come and say, sorry, there's levy for so and so, especially in Lagos, right? And I'm like, tomorrow somebody will come and say, LS, they'll try to put Lagos State something, right? Now, how about you consider the burdens that are faced by these many entrepreneurs across Africa when it comes to navigating this complex legal and business processes? Business registration, for instance, too. You heard of that staff thing where somebody is saying you trademark and all of that. With Gaia, you as a developer, perhaps right here in Lagos, right? You can create your own startup navigator as your AI agent. Now, this AI agent, you can train it specifically to be trained on this Nigerian business registration laws, your local tax codes, your available funding opportunities, and your intellectual property guidelines relevant to the Nigerian market or the Lagos market. Then you will now deploy this particular agent on your Gaia node, and other people can tap into the goodness that you have created. Is this good or not good? So when you are thinking about these technologies, a lot of the time, but it's going to round up. All right. So my point is that when you are thinking about these solutions, when you are thinking about these tools, don't think about it in terms of just surface overview. How envision how it will work for your own locality. You can't create solutions for that first. You cannot do it for Africa or the world. So start from your you get what I'm saying? So apart from that, the second use case, real quickly, I call this one the Ankara alchemist. Why? Because for a lot of us that went to school, and for a lot that are still going to school today, Olu is somebody that knows me really well. How many times do I come to class? Not very much, right? Because I was working and schooling at the time, right? I call this one the Ankara alchemist. Now let's imagine somebody hypothetically, right? My name is Funke. Don't say Kakuruma, please. Um, and Funke is a brilliant and busy fashion design student, for instance, right? That is right here, maybe in our backyard here, Unilag, right? And she's launched her brand. She might call it, good name. You know how they say the baby skirt or the something. Let's say she launched her brand, and her brand is called Ankara Alchemy, right, on Instagram. And she creates like stunning modern pieces with, traditional African fabrics. Now, what's her challenge? She's in class most of the day, right? And you know how uni classes are 8 to 6, 8 to 5, with some ice and soup sprinkled in between. It's not the better for you, by the way, but that's just me, don't take that to heart. So in the class most of the time, lecturers don't give readers, right? And you cannot be online 247 to answer those DMs, or give style advice or take orders because she's in school. which is the primary reason our parents sent out to school, right? Or to send out to uni. So now you enter Gaia, right? If you want to use generic chatbot, by the way, those chatbots we had before, it's not going to be able to answer her like on a real time basis. Now enter Gaia, right? Funke deploys her own Gaia nodes, right? And builds that Ankara Alchemist AI agent. It's not just a bot, it's her brand intelligent, tireless assistant that is trained on her entire fashion design portfolio. I hope you are seeing the use case here. I hope you are seeing the use case. Now, it's trained on her entire design portfolio, right? Her past customer conversations, her current Lagos street style, and a deep knowledge of Ankara patterns and African textiles. So while Funke is in class, her Ankara alchemist agent is busy on Instagram, and people don't even get the sense that they are talking to. You see the use case now.
Yes.
So build for your locale. It's not until you are powering the whole world that you have built something. Build for your friend. That is the tailor.
That makes sense.
You understand? You can collect the money later, or you understand, but do these things. Now it is going to handle customer DM with Funke's authentic Lagos voice and slang, right? Providing that personal touch. It is going to act as a virtual stylist. If I'm a plus size guy, right, and I see a size 8 skirt, and I'm coming to tell, I can tell Funke's AI agent that, look, this is my size, what is going to fit me? And the same way you were generating things with Ghibli, you can generate design style until you want the one that you want, right?
Makes
You
sense.
link it to your payment gateway, and all Funke has to come and do at the end of the day when she come back from class.
To read.
Now, order. Let me see. Good or not?
Good. Makes
Don't
sense.
laugh at me.
Makes sense.
So you need to start thinking about these things in this particular light. Even for you yourself, how many people are working 2 to 3 jobs? Even you are a software dev, but you are still doing this and you are still doing that. It's a lot. There's a lot that can be done with these things. Remove the code, that coding thing there. And first of all, design for what you want to solve for. And Gaia, if I'm not there, Toby will be there. If Toby is not there, there will be there. Somebody is there to take your project. You understand? From just a project to a product. That is what that's the Gaia assurance. When you go Gaia, you can only go higher.
Rema.
You should go Gaia. You should go Gaia.
This makes a lot of sense.
So I think that at this point now,
You have confused us, not confuse this. Yes, not confuse you.
that you should
Use.
build your own self-decentralized agents on Gaia. Thank you very much, guys. You can find me on there's something called Gaia program. I'm not going to talk about that now. You can always trace me. We're always looking for ambassadors, people to plan meetups, people to take part in our paid bounty program. If you want to get paid, if you want to build your own node networks, you are free to come around. If you have questions, there's no time for that. You can always text me or answer you. My username on Twitter. What's that thing now? Just type of Open Bangkok on Twitter. Let's see me there. Right there. Yeah. There, BGBG. Yeah. If you search for any Bangkok on Twitter, it's there. Have a good one, guys, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the program. Thanks very much.
Guys, how do you feel after the session? Right, you feel it. No. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Sir, if you chat up is not your AI agent, I will not reply. But that makes a lot of sense anyway. Oh, 2021. That makes sense. Thank you so much. Thank you.
If you use Gaia, you can only
Go higher. Just meet after service.
It's possible.
So, I guess I enjoyed that. So, I'm hungry.
Yes. It's about time.
Our face on the screen.
Photographer. I just
Because our face are not changing.
I just
It's not you that is changing the face, it's just the face.
okay.
But don't worry, I got it. So, I'm going for break. Like, technically, like in the next 10 minutes. So we have a very quick showcase. So somebody that is giving up what that wants like to share it for all of us. So
And the bachelor.
and then my hands together for Lunchman. My name is Lunchman. So please have the hands together for it. Now I'm not clapping you. I can't hear you.
I'm not going on with this.
One guys.
Uh,
I can wait. I'm not because of the hunger. Please, look your flag rated on me. Give up everybody. Hey, let's see, guys. When I say Jim up, you reply Jim up. Are you ready? Jim up.
Jimo.
Jim up. She's smiling. You're married. All right, guys. So, apparently, my name is Osman. I'm a video creator, founder of Osman. Connect to the founder, and I'm literally here in front of you guys to just talk about what Osman is about and trying to benefit from it. So please, pay attention to this. Like, it's not really anything too serious. So I'm going to start by, I joined Mob last year, early last year, and trust me, it was boring at that time. Why? Because I was like the only Nigerian there that I knew, right? So whenever I make tweets a lot of this stuff, it's like just myself and and a couple of my friends, first month was this was that, so it's only at the top, right? But over to late last year, I still have a couple of friends I got on love to talk about what if we could use the platform where people that create on love could, come together and work together. And that's what we brought about for them. Right? I would have given you guys the whole fancy slides and all. I'm so sorry for disappointing you guys. So just ride with me. So with Moscona, the aim of Moscona is to onboard users to more blockchain and help them around the blockchain by providing you access to non-technical stuff, right? And I know a lot of those builders, have brought you guys to the whole technicality, how you can do, none of the stuff. But I'm going to you guys that. Now with Moscona, the aim is to onboard you to more and show you around more in a friendly way. So we have to show you that okay, they can come on more and not be like Luxman, right? So we are building a platform that connects creators to builders and builders to the community. You get me? If you are calling shout Launchman.
Lunchman.
I like are you single? My real name. All right, so my real name is Yobu. So,
Lunchman is better.
so if you pronounce the surname, the color they go. Thank you. Long one is okay. So that's the aim for much further, right? And currently we're working on the whole technicality and that's why I don't have anything to say. But to follow up and tell people what we're doing, just take the free time and follow at much further, right? When this is going to be out. So as a builder, you could get connected with an audience for your products and like your personal community. So much fun. It's as simple as it. And one exciting stuff for you guys that are going to dive into building on more is the fact that of recent, what's gonna partner with content oracle to produce a team which is called Connect to the Founder. So what Connect to the Founder is doing is bringing founders and their product to the spotlight. You understand? Do you understand?
Yes.
And then when you guys want to start to do the hungry, just start them. I'll come back. So, so it's Connect to the Founder. As a founder, most times you in the early stage of building, you don't have audience. People don't really care about what you're doing. But we also use Azure as something that was just there without any user, right? But fast forward to now, what changed is in audience and interaction. So connect to the founder is here to spotlight innovative product and your founder. So if you're a builder and you want your product to be spotlighted and see yourself to gain audience traction, connect to the founder is that place for you. Do you understand? So you can see the whole thing from what's corner to having an official field post connect to the founder. All of this thing is just to give you a soft landing on the mock blockchain. If you are thinking, you say, yeah,
Yeah.
I like this skill. Thank you. So that is all about Boss Corner. And to follow up what we're doing, just go to Twitter right now and search for Boss Corner. MORPASCORNER. Get me? You get me?
Yeah.
You have a question. My mommy name or my uncle name? Ah,
Aww.
what I found out. Don't use the found out. All right, please go ahead. Thank you so much. For now, we're not bugging ourselves with all of this stuff. So the easiest way to contact us is through. But like I said, the way this is going to be out next week, and from the way this is going to have access to all of the channel you want to spend, Telegram, Discord, and all of that. So, guys, if I've been able to confuse you, say yeah.
Confused. Confused.
All right. They ask me the question. Which one? So, in case you try to connect more corner, more blockchain and add corner to it. So, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. And I know your favorite creator. Say my name.
Lunchman. Best time I'm coming on stage cameraman. Aww. Really an amazing session. So we have like a couple of speakers left about it and the final session. But before that, we are going straight to taking pictures and launching. From launchman to launch. Hey. Before that, we have like put together the names of those that participated on the Twitter and so we do that. Also, let's just use this moment while we wait for the and are getting, if you know that when you were pretty African community on Discord, can I see your hand? Okay. All right. So now, go on. So please scan the link and join Discord community. I'm the community manager. I'm Facebook. I'm Minola Messi. Hey, see them. Welcome. And there's one thing, right, guys? Don't join the community and speak more. The West African community is for you. Like you said, like you said when it came on, he said three things. West Africa is there to support, educate. Oh my God, my stuff. I was want to understand. I know, yeah, it's fine. What? You know the link last time. While you fixing that, you can just click on the Discord link on West Africa bio on X. Yes. So I want to see everybody. I'd like to connect with us. If you are building any projects in the web space, if you are writing, if you are a writer, a designer, you have all of these things, and you need a platform to like promote yourself. That's what Web3 Africa is there for. Support and not only developers alone. Sometimes when we have events, when I speak in the community, I get people ask me for developers alone. No, every single person is because it's Web3 space. So everybody knows me. If you tag me to your content, I will repost. If you tag me to your design, I will repost. I mean, don't know which checking the website account. Once again, thank you so much for listening to now. Love you so much. Okay. Go on. Okay. So, hi guys. It's time for us to go a break, but yes, let's come back to this. So I have a few
numbers of sheep.
Oh my God.
I want to pick them. Start with the first one. If I call your name, you get a free ticket from Afrika. So
Just
just fit. I congratulations, you just won a free ticket.
Omo,
Please, can you walk down to grab your t-shirt?
okay. If you know that you have like 500 impression, 1,000 impression, I would not call you to get this shit. It's solve your group. But I think social media thing can't get it. We are taking from 200 impression and above. So if you have other than that, just come with your group. Thank you so much.
So, who's the next person? Please, let's get up.
now woman dey win am o. We women dey track.
I want to take the games. Before you start telling me I better go.
We have 200 viewers, God. 202 viewers. Ah, that makes
So, who is
Hey, oríṣiríṣi.
Bros? Wait, next people. What is your government name?
Iwe Chukwu. Remove that man, sir. This guy. Na him name na. If you talk say na him name, na him name. Aliphatic.
Please, brother. Just get up.
Can you guys move? Well, intelligence.
Intelligence. Intelligence.
He looks intelligent though. Wow.
Just get up.
Oh yeah, move.
I am a content.
Can we go on a break now? Popo. Hey, leave. We should leave now.
Just get up.
Have you forgotten I'm doing something here? So carry proof. Oh. A carry proof. A carry proof. You cannot.
Please put your hands together for him.
This charger is slow. Very good. Share you see photographer. Share you see. Do your thing. Since everybody wants to do that.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's time for us to go. First, we need to happen. What will happen? In a very orderly manner. In a very orderly manner, we'll go outside and take good photos. And then when we are coming back, grab our
You're going for a first.
But before we do that, one of our guys complained that his wallet is not missing, no. So,
I want to notify them that we are going on a short break. Is it correct? We are going on a short break.
give us the description of the wallet. Hi, come on. No, no, okay. It's not like someone's wallet. It's not like someone. Describe the wallet.
But there's no phone. There are pencils. Pencil.
Ah, which can you think?
I want to think that we are all good people.
Yes, I help you now.
I want to think that you have finished the job. After you get today, your next $1,000. It's about me on that. So we stop.
You can just reach out to me, reach out to me.
Can I end life?
Please go.
Can't
The one that's come back. Very, very, very orderly man.
For me, yes. You can't know what.
Can we just go outside?